The latest, the pronouncement for wrong things.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's on to GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen. A new film about the great Liza Minnelli makes its Boston debut at the Regent Theatre. And a 300-year-old violin gifted to the New England Conservatory could become the most expensive instrument ever. It's all ahead on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Reaction is pouring in from all over the world a day after President Trump said the United States would take over the Gaza Strip. Trump also suggested that Palestinians who've been displaced by the war should be relocated to other countries. Youssef Moniyir is a senior fellow at the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. He says such a move would further destabilize the region.
The last thing that anyone in the region wants to sign up for or thinks is a path to stability is more ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So Trump has obviously identified a problem here, but is really more like an arsonist than a firefighter.
Trump's plan would call for nearly 2 million Palestinians to leave Gaza. Employees at the U.S. Agency for International Development will be put on leave Friday as the Trump administration moves to dismantle it. NPR's Shannon Bond reports the agency and the State Department are planning to recall overseas staff within 30 days.
The directive placing all staff on leave was sent out to agency employees and posted on USAID's website. It said there would be some exceptions for, quote, mission-critical functions, core leadership, and specially designated programs. One senior USAID official told NPR it amounted to a shutdown of the agency, which distributes the bulk of U.S. foreign aid. USAID has been in chaos for 2 weeks as the Trump administration froze funding, laid off contractors, and ordered staff to stop work. President Trump and his advisor Elon Musk have accused the agency of corruption and fraud without providing evidence. Shannon Bond, NPR News.
2 groups of FBI agents are suing the Justice Department. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports the separate lawsuits are seeking to block the DOJ from making public the names of agents who worked on January 6th Capitol riot cases.
One of the lawsuits was filed by the FBI Agents Association and the other by a group of 9 anonymous FBI agents. In recent days, the Justice Department has sought to obtain a list of FBI officials who worked on the Capitol riot investigation and or cases involving now President Trump. Both lawsuits view this as a retaliatory measure and seek to block the Justice Department from making public any such list of FBI agents. The plaintiff's fear, among other things, is that if the list is released, it could open agents and their families to possible retribution by the 1,500 or so January 6 defendants who have been pardoned by President Trump. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, at the Justice Department.
Stocks are trading mixed on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 12 points. The Nasdaq Composite trading lower, down 77. The S&P down 10 points. This is NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts has seen up to a 25% increase in individuals who are experiencing homelessness in the past year. And as the State House News Service reports, service providers have yet to receive any increase in state assistance in 2 years, mostly because attention has been focused on the family shelter system. At a briefing hosted by the Coalition for Homeless Individuals yesterday, leaders and providers spoke about how the right to shelter law does not apply to homeless adults and how the individual homelessness system works and how the aging community of homeless individuals is changing. Providers serving homeless adults rely on funding from the state within a system of state-run facilities. And there might be a major chill in the air, but it's going to be hot, hot, hot today in Harvard Square. Today's the day the Hasty Pudding Theatricals of Harvard University give a tip of the hat in a hasty pudding pot to entertainer Cynthia Erivo, the organization's 2025 Woman of the Year. The timing could not be better for this. Just a few days ago, Erivo did have an outstanding performance at the Grammy Awards. Later this month in the Academy Awards, she's nominated for Best Actress for Wicked. At 1:45 p.m. today, Erivo will be part of a parade on Mass Ave in Harvard Square. And then the Hasty Pudding Theatricals will host a celebratory roast of her at 7 o'clock this evening, where she'll be presented with the coveted pudding pot at Fracas Hall. And, of course, that's the pudding's home in the heart of Harvard Square since 1888. Hasty Pudding Man of the Year award, John Hamm picked up his pudding pot last week. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Going to be joined tomorrow by Senator Ed Markey. We're not going to be here. We'll be in Brighton. But we will be here on Friday when we're going to be joined by the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. She'll be with us from 1 to 2, taking our questions and yours. And on Monday, we're going to be joined by Mayor Michelle Wu here at the library from 11 to noon. Thank you, Jim.
Hi.
Hi.
You're supposed to mention another thing.
What other thing?
Well, we never tell people in advance what the last segment of the show is going to be. But Marjorie thought, and I thought it was very kind, that we should give people 2.5 hours to prepare because it's a pretty serious subject.
It is.
Well, we want to know, again, this will be at 1:30, are you willing to have an extra child to ensure that the tea runs on time? Now, I know that may be an odd question, but Google it, and we'll get to it at 1:30.
Yeah, look at the word Sean Duffy. You may get confused because he's heading up now. What is he head of? What's he the head of now?
Transportation.
Transportation. Okay, he's the head of transportation. But he used to be
called the Secretary of Transportation.
He used to be a star on reality TV,
Yeah,
so you might get the two versions.
And
of
a variation. Would you be willing to have 2 kids to ensure that the Sagamore Bridge is replaced?
That's right.
Those are decisions we as individuals have to make.
Tying fund for those kinds of things to birth rates in different states. That's
it's good thinking. So we're starting the show with any number of outrages, throwing our efforts to carefully curate the information we provide in these early days of the Trump administration right out the window. The pace of Trump's actions, I should say, whether real or not, have been breakneck. Just yesterday, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu playing the part of a lapdog, smiling at his side, Trump floated the idea of forcibly resettling millions of Palestinians out of their homeland in Gaza and turning the 25-mile strip of land on the Mediterranean coast into waterfront Riviera-style resort property, as Henry said to us this morning, not Trump Plaza, but Trump Gaza. That announcement comes after the president said detained migrants will be sent to Guantanamo Bay, along with potentially some American citizens. Is that not correct?
Those are the ones that are going to El Salvador.
Yeah. Don't worry, though. He promises not to house detainees next to tourists, as if that distinction is important. Not to mention the trade war that most economists say can't win, and the verifiable raid on the federal government at the hands of his unelected first buddy, Elon Musk. And don't get Marjorie started on the Democrats in the Senate in huge numbers voting in favor of a Trump nominee who was part of a lawsuit trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Yeah,
I was surprised by that. There's a long list of Amy Klobuchar, Maggie Hassan, people that I thought were kind of hold the line.
Didn't you say Adam Schiff, too?
Adam Schiff from California.
So in any case, the zone has successfully been flooded. What's next? Here's the question for you. How do we respond to the daily outrages while maintaining our sanity? When I say we, I mean we as individuals in this country or families, and we as the media. The number to call is 877-301-8970. I mean, we did say, I was joking, well, it wasn't really joking. I said at the beginning that you said on the air and off the air in our meetings in the morning, we were going to try to limit our coverage of this tsunami of Trump actions, many of which you contend, I'm not with you on this, are not real. I think as many will be real as he can get away with, but you just can't avoid it.
Do you think he's going to build a Trump Tower in Gaza?
I think that he will force people like Marco Rubio, his Middle East envoy, the now sycophantic Benjamin Netanyahu, to support this thing for as long as it's got a shelf life. And by the way, do I think he would like to force all the Palestinians out of Gaza and into Egypt and Jordan, and he'll exert pressure on them even though their leaders have said no so far? Yeah, I do. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think he's going to do his damnedest to make sure that little Jared Kushner can build a hotel on the Gaza Strip. Yeah, I do.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a big fan of Ezra Klein. He does a podcast and he writes a column for the New York Times. And he was talking about how, there's going to be a barrage of these kinds of things that you may remember Steve Bannon told PBS Frontline, that would be us back in 2019, that as far as Trump is concerned, the opposition party is the media, and he thinks the media are a bunch of dopes, and that we can only focus on one thing at a time. So that's where the phrase of flood the zone came from Steve Bannon. The idea is we hit the stupid people in the press with three things every day. They'll bite on one, and then they'll sneak the other stuff behind the one outrage that we cling on to. You got to start with muzzle velocity. Just throw it all out there like a hammer, muzzle velocity. Just shove all this stuff at them, get them all hysterical and distracted.
Okay, so let me ask you your own question.
What?
In light of the fact that you don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell, I hate that expression, I don't know why I used it. You don't think there's any chance that this Gaza thing will happen? Should we even be talking about it?
Yeah, that's the dilemma. That's the dilemma we face. People say they don't want to talk about this stuff anymore. We shouldn't buy all this stuff. We shouldn't be upset about all this stuff. But some of the stuff is pretty upsetting, like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard are probably going to be in the cabinet. That's pretty upsetting to me, and I think that's about to happen.
Don't you think the fact that
Democrats rolled over after going on and on kind of self-righteously about election denial, this is terrible, 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 and then they vote for an election denier to run the Veterans Department.
But get back to Gaza for a second. You don't think the fact that, as Trump said last night, everybody loves the idea of him taking... Here is Donald Trump at the press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu on bended knee, standing maybe 10 feet to his right there, talking about turning the idea of America taking over Gaza and turning it into essentially the Riviera of the Middle East. Here he is.
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land. You have to learn from history. History is, just can't let it keep repeating itself.
Nope.
We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East.
Okay, so we want to know how you are deciding to... This is how many days is this? 16 or 17 or whatever it is. How are you dealing with this? And that includes what we've discussed with you before. You're not paying attention at all. What are you talking about? What do you want us, and I don't just mean Marjorie and me, I mean the media, to focus upon, and what should we just ignore? I mean, the Gaza thing is a perfect example. I will agree with you. The likelihood of it actually happening is very small. The likelihood of just the proposal damaging even further our relationship with countries in the Middle East, if not around the world. That impact is going to happen no matter how real this is.
Everybody loves the idea. The Palestinians, I'm sure, are not fond of the idea. I mean, since 1948, they've been worrying about being displaced from their own land, and I don't think they're going to be changing their mind about now. But the other thing we haven't mentioned is the idea of, you say something against Trump, and Elon Musk will make sure you don't get your Social Security check.
Well, I could do that. One of those 19-year-olds could do that. They're
right that they're 19 years. Apparently, they all set up cots in the Eisenhower office tower next to the White House because, as Elon Musk says, the problem with the federal government is they won't work the weekend. Since they won't work the weekend, they're leaving the field open for all his 19 and 20 and 21-year-olds that are like working around the clock. I mean, that was the thing about, they talked about this at SpaceX or Tesla, wherever he was, where Elon Musk, who's, likes a lot of drugs, would stay up all night long or wouldn't sleep at all and would be, would be running the clock for his workers all night long, believed in 20-hour work days and that kind of stuff.
The one thing we should add to this list to sort of be as comprehensive as possible before we get your calls and texts is we're going to talk to Nancy Gertner about her effort with some of it at noon, with people like Norm Eisen, who was obviously counsel to the first impeachment committee in the House and has done some other things, about these mass firings at the FBI and the Department of Justice. And Margie and I both read a story last night where the guy who is interim head of the FBI, who is amazingly sort of resisting and was picked by the Trump administration.
The names. You won't give them the names.
And why is he?
They picked the wrong guy.
They picked the
wrong guy on the website or something. They made a mistake.
They meant to pick a different person.
They meant to pick a different person.
And they picked
well,
this
he'll
guy.
be gone soon. Forget to mention that
he'll be at Guantanamo.
They've offered buyouts to everybody at the CIA.
Everybody.
And that
we don't need them.
In the FBI, they're talking about a third of the agents may have been implicated as bad people because they, did something involved with the January 6th investigation. So they could be wiping out great parts of the FBI.
So things are good, is what we're basically saying.
Things
16,
are good.
17
And I get these
days
texts all the time about people saying, Marjorie, you laugh at things that are very serious. Well, let me just tell you in advance. You laugh because if you're not laughing, you're crying. So I'd rather laugh
Where do you want to go?
Cry. Tim in Onset, thank you for calling.
Welcome, Tim. Hi.
Hey, there's so much craziness involved in all this stuff. I don't know where to go, but I'll tell you, the Gaza thing, it makes me think that we participated in the bombing of Gaza. We helped to level it, and now we want to go in and create the Riviera. Is anybody looking at the fact that maybe there was something going on beforehand with this?
What is the something?
What do you
mean us supplying the weapons that allowed this to happen? Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, we're complicit.
We are complicit. We are complicit.
Trying to get rid of Gaza and moving people out involuntarily.
Well, you know what's really sad, Tim, about
the deporter-in-chief.
You know what the problem was about complicity is not one reporter last night asked the question of Donald Trump about our complicity. Now, his position was we didn't supply enough weapons. Remember when Biden stopped the 2,000-pound bombs or whatever? But his position is we didn't do enough. I think most Americans who care about their fellow human beings think we did too much.
Well,
Tim, thanks for the call.
Our buddy John King mentioned last night how many people in Dearborn, Michigan who couldn't vote for Biden because they were disgusted with Biden's seemed to blanket. Now? Well, they're not so happy now, and they're warned about that. But they either voted for Trump or they didn't vote at all. But I mean, I don't think a lot of people that are on the side of the two-state solution and peace in Gaza were happy with Joe Biden's conduct of the war either.
I agree. But everything, as you say, you've said a million times about things over the last 15 years, some things are not equal. Even things that are not good are not necessarily equal, and I think that's another example of them.
Okay, we're going to take more of your calls after a quick pledge break. It is pledge time. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We're live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, we're back with one of our old favorites here, Jim, the wireless earbuds, GBH wireless earbuds. You can get those for $10 a month, and we'll send you out those wireless earbuds. They're available today till 7 o'clock. They're very cute. They have a little charging case. They feature the 89.7 GBH logo. They're black this time. They used to be white.
I can hold
but now
up the
black.
white version.
Those are the white version, yeah, but they're black this time, though.
Okay,
maybe more chic. They'll kind of blend in.
Well, they're also waterproof, which they were not before.
Waterproof.
That's
that is a big deal. That's right.
Deal.
That means you can wear them in the shower? Is that what that means?
I don't know what the hell it means.
Okay. Well, anyway, they're waterproof. So we always like it, $10 a month.
You're in the rain, I guess.
$10 a month means you're a sustaining member, and what that means is that it's easy for us to budget for what we are going to get from our listenership. More than 70% of our budget comes from listener support, and it's mostly through small gifts like $10 a month or $15 a month. But we're happy with anything you can give. Because we depend on listenership to support us, and Jim and I both are very fond of our jobs, and I think you must like the station because you wouldn't be listening to us. And don't forget, we have stuff here going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the numbers are 888 the one number, I should say, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
The earbuds are great, and they're black this time, even though I held up
black.
the white, but I don't think it was on camera, so it doesn't really matter. In any case, and by the way, just look at the next couple of days. Where else are you going to get Ed Markey calling in from the Senate tomorrow, the governor here at the library for an hour on Friday, and Mayor Wu for an hour on Tuesday. I think those are of some value, not to mention the fabulous guests our colleagues are able to pull together for the show. Plus, our other colleagues are doing wonderful work, as you say, from dawn to dusk. So this is an opportunity to show you care. It's also great to get the earbuds, but earbuds or not, it's an opportunity to support the station. As Marjorie said, 70% of our budget comes from listener support. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And do you believe we got through one of these without talking about how you lost yours on the first day you bought them in the mulch?
Okay, because a million people have heard that story, Jim, and I think we should move on.
No, I think we should not. You know what the beauty is, by the way? When they were white, you lost them in the mulch. How about when they're black?
Forget it.
You're never going to see those babies.
Not even going to try. Okay.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Ed Markey tomorrow, the governor 1 to 2 on Friday, the mayor on Tuesday. We're talking about the endless stream of, I would argue, unconstitutional, illegal, outrageous behaviors from the new president of the United States. We'll talk to Nancy Gertner, former federal judge, at noon about the legality of these things. Here is Chris Murphy, who we were praising yesterday, a senator from Connecticut, tweeting, I think this is a tweet, "I have news for you. We aren't taking over Gaza," as Marjorie said, "but the media and the chattering class will focus on it for a few days. Trump will have succeeded and distracted everyone from the real story, the billionaires seizing government to steal from regular people." I would say...
That's exactly what one of our texters just said, too, that he's trolling America with Gaza.
Well, I have great respect for Senator Murphy, but one, most of us are able to do two things at the same time, as we're going to do today, talk about the unconstitutional takeover of government. At the same time, we're talking about this. And Chris Murphy, I would say to you and to that texter, as I said to Marjorie a half hour ago, even if this never happens, the consequence of Trump just saying what he said last... By the way, this was...
Also,
no, let me get this thought out.
What about the hostages? They're not all out yet.
Well, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
You're Hamas.
Right.
And you've only released,
Might take you
12?
off.
No, excuse me, take you off. Why would you agree to continue
exactly
with the hostage release and the ceasefire when you know when the process is done, Donald Trump wants to evict all the Palestinians from their homeland?
Yeah, I know.
And so the answer is it is relevant, Chris Murphy, even if it turns out it's blue sky. My apologies.
And at the press conference last night, a reporter said, where are these people going to go? Where are they going to go? And we know Jordan has said they don't want them. Egypt has said they don't want them. I'm not sure they're going to go. They're not going to come to the United States, obviously. We're getting rid of everybody, even if you're born here and you're not born in the right circumstances. John from Gardner, thank you for calling.
Hey, John.
Good morning, kids. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Real quick, on yesterday's subject with Elon Musk, what's going to happen when the inevitable fallout occurs between the two of them? How much and how much information do him and his boys have already, and what are they going to have when the fallout happens? Now, on today, Marjorie, Jim, I'm going to try a sports analogy. I know I'm on the wrong station for it, but
it's okay. Give it
here
a
we
go.
Marjorie, you know Coach Andy Reid, you know Pat Mahomes, right?
Yep. Kansas City, yep.
This Sunday, Coach Reid is going to have a bunch of scripted plays. In other words, he's going to have 10, 12, 15 plays that they've decided strategy-wise are in their best interest. And they're going to run those plays. They have it all planned out ahead of time. It seems to me that these guys have a script going on. And my question is, who's running it? Is Steve Miller the brains?
Well, I think it's that project.
By the way, we did not cut John off.
Yeah,
he just disappeared.
It's Project 25, which, of course, President Trump said 2025 said he didn't know about it, nothing to do with it when he was running for office. And now people that are in that group are getting all sorts of jobs in the federal government. That's what they were laying out in this Project 2025. But, it's so funny because Republicans are so anti-abortion. Once again, the line about Barney Frank, their concern is life begins at conception and ends at birth.
Yeah.
Because what they've done now is stop AIDS vaccines through USAID over in a lot of these African countries. And of course, AIDS gets transmitted to babies. So, I guess they're concerned about abortion, but they're not concerned about the suffering of a child born with AIDS in a country with not very good health care.
But by the way, they're also not concerned about abortion because, as Mike Pence made clear, the guy they're about to vote in as head of HHS is not only anti-vax, he's pro-choice. But we don't care about that anymore because Donald Trump told us to vote for him. So it really doesn't, it's demented. 877-301-8970.
The Democrats? What's the list of 24 Democrats? I lost my page with the
24.
list. What's up with them?
Well, I think, I have great respect for Lee Pelton.
Yep.
Lee Pelton said yesterday he did not agree from the Boston Foundation with Chris Murphy's position. We don't cooperate at all. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we're normalizing. He said we have to cooperate wherever we can. And I'm assuming what those Democrats are doing, I don't know, we'll ask Ed Markey this tomorrow, is you can't oppose every nominee. So even though he's an election denier, because you look like you're an obstructionist, which a lot of people think the Democrats should be. But obviously, Adam Schiff, for example, is there a more anti-Trump Democrat in the United States Senate?
No.
I mean, obviously, one of the leaders of the impeachment thing when he was a member of the House of Representatives until he was elected to the Senate in California. They decided strategically that's what they've got to do. By the way, Aiden in Vermont says, more earbuds for Marjorie to lose in the mulch. What I really want is that smug mug. If only it had just had Marjorie's face on it. It appears you're going to have a long wait for the smug mug. So get with it on the earbuds there.
Our most popular item.
Whatever. 877-301-8970. Joyce in the car. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks.
You asked earlier about what you want the media to do.
Yeah.
What do you want to hear about? I think there's a couple things. One is the media loves the nonsense. It gains viewers, it gains attention to their station and ratings. So, you have to think about that. But I think as somebody who is disgusted by what's happening, I want to know, what can I do? It would be great if there could be more reporting on, here's the fact, here's what you can do about it.
Well, first of all, I have to say, I don't think it's the media's job to tell you. That is people who are unhappy or happy should be able to make decisions. And I have to say, one of the things we discussed yesterday was the fact that there's very little action in other countries when a minor thing happens, much less a major thing. Like in Israel, as the caller said yesterday, prior to October 7th, around the attempt to disempower the judiciary that was going after him. Netanyahu, hundreds of thousands of Israelis on the streets. We don't do that in this country. As I said yesterday, we tweet. And so I can tell you what not to do, Joyce. What not to do is just go to social media and tweet or post on Instagram or Blue Sky, do something. But again, it's not our function, but we appreciate your call.
Well, there was a small protest. It wasn't huge, but there were protests in D.C. at the USAID office, I think in front of other offices too. I'm not sure, but they weren't huge. They weren't like the Pussy Hat protests that we had when Trump was first brought back into office. But
that protest had 175,000 people in Boston alone.
Yeah,
alone.
It was the biggest protest we've ever had. Not that it seemed to affect change, but I don't know. I think there's going to be some efforts along those lines pretty soon. I certainly hope, but it's not the press's job to advocate for those kinds of things. Joyce in the car, thank you for calling.
No, we just did Joyce.
Oh, we did Joyce.
Joyce,
okay.
Thank you. Where else are we going
there.
next, friends here? A lot of people want to talk about this. We're on fairly limited time today. Stephen, I don't know where you are,
Kingston,
but hi.
Or Waltham.
Wherever you are, we're glad to have you. What's up, Steve?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I'm from Kingston on my way into Boston. You asked what we think the media should be focusing on, and I think ongoing constitutional crisis is what is best focused on. Everything that's happening is just a variation on that theme. The usurpation of government, the abdication of its advise and consent role by our Senate. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your first call. Here's another text saying the same thing. Stop chasing Trump's shiny objects. Gaza, like his tariffs, are only intended to distract from his unqualified appointments and his Doge coup. Again, we can do two things at once, number one. And number two, because of what he said last night, our relationship with our allies or potential allies around the world will be affected. So no, we're not going to ignore it. even if the Gaza thing is an illusion or a distraction, as that texter and other texters are saying, it has real impact, just their proposal, on our relationship with people we should be friends with, rather than treating them like absolute crap. In any case,
yeah, I think
we're going to talk about the constitutionality issue at 12 with Nancy Gertner.
Yes, and I think a lot of people are very freaked out about Elon Musk being in charge. I mean, he's not a normal guy. You know what I mean? I just don't know that.
Unlike the president, who is a totally normal guy.
Well, that's what's so weird. I mean, we have Elon Musk, who's a very odd guy, and Donald Trump, who I think is a man without much empathy.
And a felon, by the way.
And a felon, and twice impeached guy. You know, making these decisions is kind of scary. But I mean, that's, as people say, what people voted for.
We're done.
I don't think they voted for Elon, but they certainly voted for Donald Trump. Are we done? Oh my gosh,
we are.
That went so quickly.
Time's
okay,
moving today.
We are moving on. Jared Bowen is next. He's going to tell us about these two great Super Bowl ads featuring local guys, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. They're back, and a great new film about Liza Minnelli, the daughter of Judy Garland. And Liza Minnelli was a big star. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
You know, one of our favorite things about Pledge, we never do this except during Pledge, is we read comments that listeners make when they're kind enough to make a contribution. And a lot of them are really great. Here is Rose in Pepperell, the best radio station in the world.
Wow.
Tammy in Portsmouth, I appreciate the honest reporting and dedication. Mary in Worcester, I rely on GBH for my news and entertainment, on and on. And there's some nice things about us. I listen to, this is Bernadette in Boston. I listen to Marjorie and Jim almost every day. Also rely on NPR for the news, on and on. By the way, I can't tell you, not only your contribution, taking the time to write something about us or our colleagues at the station really means a huge amount to us. So thank you for doing it. If you want to join those people and make contribution, whatever amount you can, again, for $10 a month or $120 all at once, you get the earbuds, which are updated. They're new version. They're in black, and they are waterproof, which is a big deal. That deal is only available till 7 o'clock. But even if you're not interested in that or can't afford the $10 or don't want to spend the $10 or $120, give whatever you can so you feel you're sort of part of what it is that we are doing here, because you are. The number's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Here's a nice one from Carolyn in Somerville. Public radio is an important, trustworthy source of news. I will never take it for granted. We're lucky to have you. So that was very nice too. But as Jim said, we have these earbuds today a few times a year because we get most of our money from listener support. We ask for you to help us out with our financing here. And so the earbuds, $10 a month, or you can get them. I guess you can get them if you want to just pay one-time fee. I forget what that is. $120? Yeah, $120 all at once if you just want to do that way and ask for the hi-fi earbuds. But we're grateful for whatever you are able to give. You know, if it's $5 period, that's something, and we're grateful to have it. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org is the number. If we didn't do this a few times a year, we would have commercials. And you know from listening to commercial radio or watching television how horrible commercials are. Thank God you can record things now and just fly through the commercials.
Yeah, but we'd have a chance to eat if we had a commercial.
Well, that's right. We can eat at the news break, Jim.
That is
the news
point.
break
That's
is
a
at
very good
noon,
point.
and one that gives us plenty of time to eat. But anyway, the number, if you are inclined and able to give, is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, thanks you guys. Live from the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Ed Markey zooms in tomorrow. The governor shows up in person to answer your questions Friday at the library 1 to 2. Mayor Wu on Tuesday. And by the way, we have invited Josh Kraft. We are going to be totally fair and balanced, to coin a phrase, in this race. One thing I want to say before I introduce Jared, we failed to mention this. Andy Borowitz weighed in on the takeover of Gaza too. Here's the first two paragraphs. A spokesman for the Palestinian people said on Wednesday that though they had no intention of leaving the Gaza Strip, they would be, quote, very interested in taking control of the Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach. Right now, Mar-a-Lago is a mess, the spokesman said. The only reason anyone is living there is because they have no other alternative. That is our good friend Andy Barwitz. We're joined now by another good friend, Jared Bowen, even though he was 30 minutes late yesterday to the show. GBH Executive Arts Editor, host of The Culture Show, which airs daily right here after us at 2 o'clock. Hi, Jared.
Good to see you.
And to you.
Hello, Jared. So we've got two great commercials from our homie guys here, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Can we start with the one from Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
We're going to hear a little sound. This is, in this clip, brothers Ben and Casey Affleck are waiting on actor Jeremy Strong. What's that show, Severance, he was in? And he was in the show
Succession.
before.
That's Succession, we call it, yeah.
Sorry.
It's
he was
only
in
the biggest
Succession.
show in the last 10
I know,
years.
they both
Not that
began
big
with
a
an
deal,
S,
yeah.
so I
Yeah,
got them
whatever.
confused. That
It's
was
good
one that's
enough.
supposed to be like about the Murdoch family.
It was.
Anyway, this one is a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, and they find, the brothers Affleck do, Jeremy in his dressing room bathing in a tub of coffee beans as an attempt to get in character.
Jeremy is a method actor.
What is that?
Coming out to his ready. The acting method from the book.
There's a book?
He's preparing. He's doing his research.
I never did no research on nothing. Look where I'm at.
Exactly.
We're big time now.
You ruined it.
Do I ruin it, or do you have a breakfast named after you?
Oh.
Hey. What are you doing in there?
We're doing a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to find the character. I think I found a way in. You're from Boston. I'm from Boston. Dunkin' is Boston. Boston is Paul Revere. One if by land, two if by sea. Redcoats are coming.
You're an artist, and I know what that's like, but how long is it going to take for the bean method?
I mean, I'll be ready in like 3 hours.
You should have paid for Matt.
I told you that.
I have to say, I don't know if that comes across on the radio. I watched the video. It is a riot. It is really funny.
I think it's funnier listening to it than it
You
actually
do?
is
Okay, great.
watching it. So first of all, I was a little concerned that we had another divorce here, that Matt Damon wasn't in the new Dun Kings conversion. But we'll talk about why there's not a divorce here. But of course there is.
Wait, he directed it, didn't he? I think he directed
Well, I'm saying that's why.
I'm sorry.
And then, of course, there's no J-Lo. So what a difference a year makes. But now we have Casey.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just a year ago.
No Tom Brady
Well,
either.
you know what she said in the ad, though? She told them all to get out, and then she says, Tom Brady, you can stay. Remember that?
Do you know Jeremy
do you think
Strong
that was
is from Boston? I didn't know that until this
from
morning.
Marblehead.
Is he really?
He's from Marblehead.
I didn't
What
know.
a pretty
So
town
three
that is.
Boston boys.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Do you like that commercial?
So I thought it was okay, but I thought it was okay in comparison to the other commercial that we're going to talk
Which
about,
is
which I
fabulous.
thought was a complete home run.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
do this. Here's a clip of the Estella the beer Super Bowl ad where Matt Damon plays David Beckham's twin brother. The real David Beckham is in this. And this one is directed by Ben Affleck. Here it is.
Mom, Dad, we have something to tell you.
You have a twin brother we never told you about.
I'm sorry. So, what's his name?
Other David.
You called him Other David.
If there's two Davids, one has to be Other David.
Where is he?
Left him in America.
You drink Stella.
I have taste, David.
There's something I have to tell you.
My brother is a famous soccer player?
Yeah.
So how famous are you? Like Matt Damon famous?
Maybe Ben Affleck famous.
That's a shame.
I think that's a riot too. I mean, it is really
Well, we don't
fun.
have the visuals, but with you know what was wrong, I thought, with the first one? Jeremy Strong looked weird coming out of this vat
No, he
of
didn't.
coffee beans.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
thought so.
That's his method actor thing.
Yeah,
Whatever it is,
I don't
right?
think it worked either.
Did for me.
Well, it's definitely playing into it. Yeah, so if people don't know, Jeremy Strong is very famous for being a method actor, and there were some reports of clashing on the set of Succession because he was always so into character, but at least he has a sense of humor to play with it. But this last one I thought was hilarious, and this is why there wasn't the divorce, because Ben Affleck, as you mentioned, directed it, and it's actually all part of Artist Equity, which is the collaboration that they formed to give artists a greater hand in making projects.
Affleck and Damon did?
They did, yeah.
Oh.
In fact, when Cillian Murphy was on the Culture Show about his latest
you
film.
were so lucky to get that interview.
He was great, but he also talked about he was only able to do this because he was working with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and Artist Equity. So that's one of the few reasons you can get a small project like his, even with the star power of Cillian Murphy, off the ground because of what they're doing. But I thought this was hilarious. I thought we really saw Matt Damon's hilarity. I mean, he has such great comedic timing to know that he's also making fun of his friend who's behind the camera. And apparently this is the first of many that we'll see in the Stella Artois commercial series that will go throughout the year.
You know, I have to say, this is my general position about these ads is don't talk about them before the Super Bowl, don't talk about them after the Super Bowl. But these are not just local. I mean, you're not crazy about the first. I love both of them. I think they're really funny, really cleverly done. They're really high-quality
Well,
stuff.
just in case there are two people in the audience who haven't seen Matt Damon on Saturday Night Live doing the imitation of Justice Kavanaugh at his congressional
That's pretty
hearing.
great, too.
That is
yeah.
one of the greats of all time.
Well, the other great one is when, remember, a few years ago, they got all the Boston people together, like David Ortiz, Rachel
Yes.
Dress for Smart Pack.
Yes.
Smart Pack, that cock and Smart Pack. That is the funny. I thought that was the most hilarious
An
one.
anonymous texter asks, is Jared early or is the show over? And if you don't understand that, you have to listen to the podcast from yesterday. I made a minor mistake of timing yesterday, which was forced on me by Markey.
A minor mistake. It was like an Amber Alert. I started getting all these texts from all of these people saying, Jim is wondering why you're not in the air right now. I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? I'm not supposed to be on the air right now.
Okay, so we wanted to talk to you about the auctioning off of the Stradivarius. Is that how you... That
Yes.
And in part because it's interesting, and in part because it allows me in a minute to tell my John Abbott, the former head of CEO story. Tell us what's going on with this 300-year-old instrument.
Yeah, so the Stradivarius violins are hugely renowned because this maker in Italy for about 70 years, he started at age 12, Stradivarius did, in making these violins. And for whatever reason, whether it was the wood at the time, and some people say there was a European ice age and it made the wood really dense and it made the grains in such a way that the sounds of his violin are produced in such a way that it's been unmatched throughout history. So there are about 500 to 600 still left in existence. And a really great story is that New England Conservatory right here in Boston has one of those violins. And it was gifted to them, or they inherited it from an estate, from an acclaimed violinist. And it was given to them with the provision that at some point they could sell it and fully fund scholarships for students.
Great,
and so now they're
great.
doing this. It's going up for auction at Sotheby's on Friday. And they're estimating a price of $12 million to $18 million.
Great.
The last one, it would be the highest price ever paid at auction for a musical instrument, and the last one went for about $15 million. And again, all of this goes to student scholarships. And the other great, I think, really exciting part about this is it's called the Joachim Ma Stradivarius. And Joseph Joachim is somebody who played with Brahms and inspired some of his compositions, including violin, concerto, and D major. So an extraordinary history. And also, this was played by students at NEC. So they have had
Well, you're
their
allowed
full
to
use
play
of
it now?
They have been playing it throughout their ownership. Yeah.
That is incredible.
I mean, that's what's lovely. It's not in a museum. It hasn't been in a museum.
That is lovely.
It's
You're
been
agree,
used. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'll tell the story about
we should have a
Yo-Yo Ma's
statute
cello.
of limitations on some of these stories.
No, we should not,
that
Marjorie.
they go on and on.
We have
He
new
tells them
listeners.
over and over.
And since I know the story, even though I've told it only about 100 times, and I enjoy it, maybe somebody else will too.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk some more with Jared Bowen, Executive Arts Editor here at GBH, right after this quick pledge break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support, so please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
You know, that's a very good point. I mean, you got to pay for Hulu, you got to pay for Prime Video, you got to pay for Apple, you got to pay for Netflix, you got to pay for everything. We are free, and we are commercial free. Two big things that you can enjoy. It really annoys me that you pay on Hulu, and I still get commercials. I haven't figured out how to do it without the commercials. I know, it is really horrible. So we are here for free, 15 hours a day, and everybody else is here with their shows. So we are on the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's very expensive to do that. That's why we ask for your contributions, because we are commercial free and we are free to listen to anytime you choose, whether you do it on the radio, whether you do the podcast later, whether you do it on your computer, wherever you do it. So the number to give is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Well, you know what else you have to pay for? You left out bail. When you and I get arrested, we're going to have to pay for it.
What are you going to get arrested for?
Well, you mean for doing our jobs.
For doing
In
our
any
job.
case, can I read a few more of these?
Like the FBI agents.
These incredible statements that people did when they were kind enough to make a... This one is great. Here's Liz from Quincy. GBH Radio is the only news outlet that I can tolerate and actually enjoy sometimes, she says. And Tammy from Portsmouth, I appreciate the honest reporting and dedication. Cheryl in Somerville. Did you read this one? You were the calm in the storm by helping me sort through the deluge of information.
Thank you, Cheryl in Somerville.
And by the way, I say this all the time, and I really mean it. When people say kind things like that to us, help us get through, I'm sure Jared feels the same way. You help us get through. It's a two-way street, and it's great. And so we're doing our best on one side of the street, and on the other side of the street, if you can make a contribution of whatever amount you can afford, that'd be terrific too. At 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Today, what do you call it, the enticement?
The enticement.
The enticement, the gift, I believe we call it, but the enticement. $10 a month or $120 all at once till 7 o'clock. Get these great GBH wireless earbuds. They're updated, so they're waterproof, as the 89.7 GBH logo, all that sort of stuff. They're really good, and again, as I say all the time, that shouldn't be the primary reason you give. The primary reason you should give is because you care about what you hear here. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And again, the earbud deal is only available until 7 o'clock, but give whatever you can, whenever you can, but do it now so you don't forget. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are talking to Jared Bowen. We're at the Boston Public Library. Stream at youtube.com/GBH News. The story that Marjorie really wanted me to tell, which I'm happy to tell again,
here we go,
is I would say, I don't know how many years I did Greater Boston.
Okay.
The single best segment I ever did, interestingly, this part you'll appreciate, is the one in which I talked the least. The two guests were Andres Nelsons and Yo-Yo Ma, and the two of them, with their faces about a foot apart from each other, just talked about music and how much it mattered in their life. It was such a beautiful thing. But even greater than their conversation, I think it's still online, was right before it went on the air, John Abbott, who's then the president and CEO of GBH, came in to say hello to the two of them, and as he was leaving, Yo-Yo's cello was on the floor, and I heard a crunch, which meant John had stepped on Yo-Yo Ma's cello. The incredible thing is there was no damage. More incredible, Yo-Yo Ma was gracious about it, as he is about absolutely everything, and so that is the deal.
Yes, an anonymous texter, Jim, says, best segment, one where you taught the least. Perhaps there's a lesson there.
That is, let me tell you something. I am laughing my unit. Yeah, excuse me, you don't have to say ouch. Now, first question.
Let's move on.
That was kind of in defense of you, actually.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Is Liza Minnelli alive or dead?
She's alive.
Okay, she's alive.
She's really alive.
Okay, excuse me. And obviously, Judy Garland's daughter. I hate when people say someone is someone's kid, but I just did it because she's brilliant in her own right. There's a documentary about her, correct?
Yep.
What's the deal?
It's called Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story. And this is a new documentary that's looking at the life of Liza Minnelli. She's so alive that she was able to sit down and talk for the documentary for interviews. Okay. And I really found this very, very moving because, and the reason we're talking about it, by the way, before I forget, there's an event at the Regent Theater in Arlington this coming Friday where the director, Bruce David Klein, will be there for a Q&A as they screen the film.
Oh, that's great.
Because it's its Boston area premiere. But this takes us into her life, and so she's sitting down for an interview, and a whole coterie of friends throughout her years are also sitting down. People like Mia Farrow, whom she's known, she was 15 years old. They went to school together. I think they have had a friendship since they were 15, but they actually went to preschool together. And Michael Feinstein, the pianist, who is renowned for his cabaret performances, a whole group of people. But what really emerges is the fact that she did step out of both of her parents' shadow, Vincent Minnelli and Judy Garland.
Of course.
And they make the argument, really, that when her mother died, when Liza was only about 23 years old, it was incredibly hard, incredibly traumatic. But it kind of opened up a way for her to step into her own and have her own career. And they argue that that probably wouldn't have happened if her mother was still alive, because in some respect there was even some jealousy there. It was
from mother
it was
to daughter.
From mother to daughter.
Wait, mother was jealous of the daughter?
They have one clip where they're singing together, and then Judy starts pushing the microphone into Liza's face, telling her that she's not holding it up enough, but they're on camera. It's for a television show, so basically horrible. She's covering her face. And then after her mother's death, we see that she's got people like Halston, the famous designer, who designs her look, and then she becomes a new Liza. You have people like Bob Fosse, who gives her those great dance moves. So when she goes out for Cabaret, and she doesn't book the Broadway show. She actually does not. She loses that audition, but then of course is cast in the film, and that changes everything. And she becomes Liza, who's on the cover of Time and Newsweek simultaneously in the same week, which was, if you remember, that was a huge deal in the days of magazines. And it just changed the whole course of her career. And I would say the other thing that really comes through is just how dear she is. She's always smiling. She's always laughing. Everybody talks about, Mia Farrow calls her, describes her as a purity of heart. And people say it's also because she just wants to be so liked. She's a woman of the stage. She's always looking for her audience, but it's endearing.
Here's a little sound from the trailer for the documentary. Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story.
I feel wonderful about love because I wanted it to be like it was in the songs.
That last husband of hers, I was at the wedding. Oh my God.
Legendary actress and singer Liza Minnelli has checked into rehab.
I was very worried. How lucky I was to have gone through all of the bad stuff that I've gone through because it prepared me for the rest of my life.
I read that she was an EGOT, and I know the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. What did she win an Emmy for?
Liza with a Z.
Oh.
Her big TV special.
So how many EGOTs are there on the planet?
There are about, I think there are fewer than 20.
That is really pretty
What
amazing.
is the consensus? Because Judy Garland, incredible voice, we all know. How do they compare talent-wise, ability-wise? About equal?
Well, I think you see this in the documentary that it's distinct because they have their different talents.
Yeah.
I mean, Judy Garland had her whole aura, and she knew how to hold an audience. Liza certainly knows how to do that. But a lot of Liza's talent also came through dance, which we didn't necessarily see with Judy Garland.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where Bob Fosse came in. And they talk about Liza Minnelli has scoliosis, and so she always felt very uncomfortable in her body, and that she was almost misshapen or something, and she felt like she had to wear that burden. But Halston fixed it with his designs, putting her in outfits where that was never an issue, never seen, and her dance moves allowed her to move in such a way that also it didn't inhibit her.
By the way, there are 27 people, you're close, who have EGOTs, which is pretty incredible.
It keeps growing.
And according to one of our colleagues, not only is Liza Minnelli alive, there's also a well-followed 113,000 followers Twitter account documenting everything and everyone she's outlived called Liza Minnelli Outlives, which is a pretty good title for the thing there. So,
okay.
I don't think we have time for this.
No, are we moving on to get to the next segment?
I think we're saying goodbye to Jared.
We're saying goodbye to Jared.
We can talk about it next time.
Okay, because I'm confused with the timing today. Anyway, Jared Bowen, thank you very much.
Jim was confused with the timing yesterday.
That's right.
Okay, fine. I was slightly confused with the timing.
The Culture Show is on right at 2 o'clock, right after we are done.
We are, am I back?
Is he coming? He's probably not coming back because the
you want to give us a hint?
Tell us now.
So actually, since we're talking about Liza, Bruce David Klein will be on the show.
The director's on the show?
He's going to be on the show today talking about that project. And then with all that's happened, the 37,000 acres that have burned in California, Southern California, 16,000 structures, Mahesh Das of the Boston Architectural College will join us to talk about resiliency and how you begin the process of rebuilding.
Oh,
and
excellent.
Should you rebuild, I think is something we talk about a lot too. Jared, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Listening at 2 o'clock.
That, of course, was GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen. The Culture Show is on at 2 o'clock. Up next, we're going to get into the illegality of some of the things that Donald Trump says he's doing with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, and whether the corrupt United States Supreme Court will okay Trump's legality. Nancy Gertner next. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
And you are listening to Boston Public Radio on 89.7 GBH. It is 11:53. I'm Sonia Lee. I'm here with Melissa Jones. We're taking just a few minutes to ask for your contribution here as we wrap up this hour of Boston Public Radio. Your contribution is even more important right now as there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you are relying on GBH and Boston Public Radio to make sense of it all. And so we're asking for your contribution right now. Again, it is extremely important, so we're asking you to pitch in what you can at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. And as we wrap up this first hour, we are looking for 12 people. We need 12 contributions in the next just about 6.5 minutes. And if you can pitch in a few bucks and be one of those folks, that would be terrific. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
How about this for a suggestion for today only when you support GBH at
$10 a month, we'll thank you with our brand new wireless earbuds. They are comfortable, they sound great, and they'll pair easily with all of your Bluetooth devices. They feature smart touch controls, and I love this part, they are water resistant. Sign up right now as a sustaining member at $10 a month, or give $120 all at once and ask for the new earbuds. This is a special offer for this first day of the membership drive, and the deadline is 7 o'clock tonight. Please support your listening right now by giving at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And GBH is your source for stories and conversations that bring order to the chaos of the daily news. We're here for you every day to sort through the facts and falsehoods and to deliver insights that help you understand and cope during these difficult times. We can do that only because of listener support, and that's why we're asking for yours right now. Please sign up as a new member, maybe $5 or $10 a month on the Sustainer plan. If you're already a member, terrific. And if you have the means to give a little bit more this go around, that would be great too. Your financial support is essential to our work and essential to keeping programs like Boston Public Radio on the air. You can give online, gbhnews.org, or call 888-897-9424.
We'd like to give a really big thank you to Elizabeth in Canton. Elizabeth says, love Jim and Marjorie. Appreciate your consistent reporting of the news. Thank you so much for your support, Elizabeth. And if you agree with what Elizabeth has to say and you have your own fantastic reasons why you listen, now would be the right time for you to give to make sure that Jim and Marjorie and all of the news that you look for here stays on the air. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Oh, this is terrific. We are down to just 9 more contributions. I just need 9 more contributions here in just about the next 4.5 minutes or so. And I want to send a big thank you out to Fan in Warwick, Rhode Island, making a contribution. 9 more people. gbhnews.org. We're just trying to help keep BPR and GBH on the air, and we need your help to do it. 888-897-9424.
So today we're asking you to become that sustaining member of GBH. That's when you give monthly to GBH by setting up a recurring charge to your bank account or your credit card. $10 a month, you get those great new earbuds today, or another number that's just right for you. But when you give monthly, you help GBH keep the information flowing. It's so easy to set up. You can change it at any time. I'm a sustainer. I love giving that way. It's fantastic. I never have to think about my support being current. Join with me right now in doing that. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And again, make that contribution $10 a month as a sustaining member, and we will thank you with our brand new wireless earbuds. And these ones sound terrific. They're water resistant. They're going to pair easily with any Bluetooth enabled device. And these are, obviously favorites of Jim and Marjorie. And get the latest earbuds and support your listening of Boston Public Radio at the same time. Easy to do at gbhnews.org. You can also give $120 all at once. 888-897-9424.
You listen to Boston Public Radio because it helps keep you informed on what's happening in your neighborhoods, in Boston, and across our state. Jim and Marjorie ask the questions you want answered by the people who make changes or might make changes that affect your day-to-day life. That's what they're doing right now, and that's why we're asking for your gift right now. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Getting some great comments here. Want to thank Wilson in Concord. Says, informative, funny, and super smart coverage of important issues, the embodiment of critical thinking. Thank you, Jim and Marjorie. Well, thank you, Wilson. We appreciate it. And thanks to Wilson and some other folks, we need just 7 more people to give. We're looking for a rally here. First hour of Boston Public Radio in this important membership drive. 7 more contributions in the next couple minutes. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
You know that every day you hear the difference on GBH, the in-depth, unbiased news, the thoughtful and civil conversations, stories told in a way that only GBH tells them. It's truly news that matters. If you've never given before, please join in right now and make your contribution. You can do that at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And it is expensive for NPR and GBH to produce the programs you hear. Morning Edition, All Things Considered, Boston Public Radio, The Culture Show. It takes a lot of dollars to do that, and we rely heavily on listener support to bring you these programs, and that's why we are asking you during this membership drive to give as generously as you can. Become a new member, make an additional gift. It's really up to you, and you'll help to meet the goal. We are down to 3 more people. Just 3 more people to give. We're going to get back to Boston Public Radio here in just a moment. gbhnews.org, and you can also make that contribution at 888-897-9424.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Skating Club of Boston, presenting the ISU World Figure Skating Championships with over 300 athletes competing at TD Garden March 25th through 30th for the title of World Champion. Tickets at isuworlds2025.com. And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News, what matters to you?
If you listen to Boston Public...
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. We'll talk with Sophia Hall from Lawyers for Civil Rights, currently fighting...
Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
National Security Agency received worker resignation offers in recent days, according to sources who spoke to NPR on condition of anonymity. The move is part of an effort to realign the intelligence community with President Trump's agenda. A CIA spokesperson said that Director John Ratcliffe is, quote, moving swiftly to ensure the CIA workforce is responsive to the administration's national security priorities, end quote. The offers were sent to all employees of both agencies. The source cautioned that there will likely be exceptions for highly sensitive or senior roles. An estimated 10,000 staff at the United States Agency for International Development will be placed on administrative leave in the next 48 hours. The administration's new directive has touched off protests in the nation's capital, and NPR's Luke Garrett is on the scene.
Here in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, Democratic lawmakers and scores of federal workers and citizens are protesting the shutting down of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Tech billionaire turned special government employee Elon Musk called USAID a, quote, ball of worms, and is leading the effort to shut it down. As you can hear, scores of citizens and protesters are calling for Elon Musk to leave the federal government. Musk, along with his allies on Capitol Hill, like Senator Joni Ernst, say USAID is spending too much money. But protesters here call USAID a core function of the federal government and important to the United States standing around the world.
That's Luke Garrett reporting. President Trump is suggesting that the United States take over Gaza and redevelop it as displaced Palestinians are relocated to other countries. Trump also said he envisioned Palestinians and others returning to the region once it is rebuilt. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf reports Palestinians are reacting now to the idea.
29-year-old Bassam Mohammed Abdulraouf stands in the central square of Gaza City, once grand and now reduced to piles of rubble after more than a year of war between Israel and Hamas. Still, he says he would never leave. Even if there was a place that was 1,000,000 times better, I would still live among the rubble and the tents, he says. But for some, life in Gaza has simply become too hard. 30-year-old Yahya Barakat says he would leave if given the chance. My home is gone, my life is gone, my future is gone, he says. If I find a country that embraces me, provides me with safety, I'll go. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Tel Aviv, with reporting from NPR's Anas Baba in Gaza City.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 118 points at 44,673. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is another step closer to announcing her run for re-election one day after Josh Kraft threw his hat into the ring. Wu says she'll name a bunch of new endorsements in her favor today. And yesterday, she blew past a one-day $10,000 fundraising goal by way of an email blast and a pop-up on her webpage. By day's end, she had raised more than $25,000 from 240 donors. LGBTQ plus advocates want Worcester leaders to declare the city a sanctuary for transgender and gender-diverse people. But as GBH's Sam Turkin reports, some city councilors are concerned the resolution could have drawbacks.
At a council meeting last night, dozens of advocates said the sanctuary city designation would be symbolic. It sent a message to LGBTQ plus people that Worcester supports them, as the Trump administration targets rights for queer and transgender people. But Councillor Morris Bergman said he's worried the resolution will jeopardize funds Worcester receives from the federal government.
The 50, maybe more people that spoke here tonight, their opinions count. So do the opinions of 200,000 plus other people, many of whom rely on federal funding for the programs that trickle down to them.
Councilors delayed a vote on the matter so they can review how the federal government might respond to the sanctuary city designation. Sam Turkin, GBH News, 89.7.
Bruins in New York for a game against the Rangers tonight. The Fleet are also in New York, and sunny in upper 20s today. We're at 24 degrees outside our studios in Brighton. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
News from Brownie. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Senator Ed Markey is going to join us. He's going to call in tomorrow from Washington when we're back in Brighton.
By the way, Ed Markey did not vote, nor did Elizabeth Warren.
Nope.
For the guy to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs who was involved in a lawsuit attempting to overthrow the government.
Nor did Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire did. So did Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire. That very much surprised me. But in any case, we're going to be joined back here at the library on Friday with Maura Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth. She's going to be here from 1 to 2 taking our questions as yours. And the Mayor, Michelle Wu, will be with us here at the library on Tuesday from 11 to noon. Same thing, taking our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. We're joined now on Zoom for another edition of On the Docket by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Judge Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Hello, Judge Gertner.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Judge Gertner. So we're really glad somebody's doing something about all this mayhem. What is your State Democracy Defenders Fund? What are you doing?
Well, I'll tell you what we did the other day, which is that a number of us represented FBI agents where the government was threatening to disclose their identity if they had even the slightest role in the January 6th investigations. Now, it should be noted that Trump had already removed top echelon FBI agents and Department of Justice personnel who had actually been doing the litigating. So now he's dipping into the run-of-the-mill investigator who was assigned the case, not who chose to get the case. And bear in mind that the cases that we're talking about were investigated but brought before grand juries. Most of them were convicted or pled guilty and were sentenced by judges. So these were not FBI agents who were on a tear of their own, who were doing something that was not had been assigned to them and not ratified by the processes that we know how to ratify, which is a judge reviewing this, a grand jury, and in some cases a jury trial. What has happened is that they are threatened with the disclosure of their names. And disclosure, by the way, the implication is that it was not just disclosure to not only disclosure to the FBI, of course they knew who's working on what, but public disclosure. And you add public disclosure with the public release of the people that they were investigating, and you have essentially the ingredients for violence and retribution.
Nancy Gertner, you're I hadn't heard of this organization. You're on the board of Norm Eisen, who was involved, obviously, in the first impeachment and a whole bunch of other important small d democracy things. What is the State Democracy Defenders Fund? What do you do there?
Well, at this point, we are doing both publicity and doing litigation for the purpose. There are a number of people who are doing essentially democracy tracking Trump's efforts to undermine democracy. It has been driving me crazy that the media, you guys excluded, cover this. Look at the sort of front page of the New York Times. There's one column for what he's doing with respect to USAID. There's another column for what he's doing with respect to the FBI. Another, what he's doing just across what Musk is doing. And the state democracy defenders are sort of stepping back and saying, what is not only representing individuals in those cases, but also stepping back and saying, what is the pattern here? And the pattern here, I don't want to be hysterical, but the pattern here is an authoritarian playbook. The issue is not just these individual cases. The issue is sort of letting the public know that when you add up the column of figures, what you're getting is an all-powerful executive that is essentially treading over the civil service, treading over labor contracts, treading over Congress, and creating a very different presidency than we have ever seen.
You know, Nancy Gertner, we want to ask you about some of these individual actions Donald Trump has taken, but Marjorie and I learned a little bit about something this morning called unitary executive theory.
Yeah.
Which
gave me a heart attack.
Well, I was going to try to explain it, but I realized that was a big mistake. So why don't you explain it and tell us what the odds of a very, very conservative Supreme Court buying into this are?
And a corrupt Supreme Court, I think we can say at this juncture.
Some of them, yeah. What about it?
Well, I mean, so there is the executive branch. And the executive branch has been composed of obviously the president and the president's staff, and that's one box. Then there have been other entities in the executive branch who are relatively independent. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Consumer Board, other entities which were civil service, which meant that they were not under the thumb of the political branch, where they had relative autonomy within the executive branch, but relative autonomy. When you think of organizations like the FDIC, you think about the Securities and Exchange Commission.
National Labor Relations Board, where you fired a couple of board members the other day, yeah.
Right, the Equal Opportunity Commission. These are certainly part of the executive, but have been autonomous of the executive. He can put in who their principal, who the top is, but he can't replace the civil service. The civil service was actually an innovation of the United States and UK as well, that said that these were people who were going to be in place no matter who the government was, and they were going to be relatively independent of the government in power. The unitary executive theory says that the president essentially is in charge of it all. The president is in charge of it all, that he has sole authority with respect to the executive branch. He can do anything with respect to the civil service, do anything with respect to labor contracts within this entity. He is all powerful.
Does that include him? It sounds like it doesn't. Shutting down a congressionally created and funded entity? Would that cover that potentially or no?
No, it wouldn't, because the legislative branch is a co-equal branch. And when it sets up an agency, it cannot be undone by the president. It's one thing to say the president has powers within the executive branch, but he does not rule with respect to Congress or with respect to the judges. These are co-equal branches. And what you've seen with Congress is, essentially, they are not kicking back at the things that he's doing. They're not interposing any kind of objection to the things that he's doing. Focus for a moment on USAID. USAID was an agency that was set up by Congress. Mm-hmm. Trump cannot and surely Elon Musk, cannot take it apart. Congress has set up an agency that he doesn't have the authority to take it apart, nor does he have the authority to defund it. Funding issues, appropriations issues are legislative decisions. That was part of the architecture of, balance of separation of powers here. And that's what he's trying to do. I have a fear that he will ignore the courts.
Well, hold on for 1 second. I thought from what I read is that he may indeed ignore the lower courts. In this case, will go to the Supreme Court, but that there are at least some members of the Supreme Court who are open to these kind of landmark changes in the separation of powers, and that people like Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch might be fine with him getting rid of these agencies. Is that an incorrect reading?
I have a little, I have an interesting glimmer of hope here. So there are, how many? There are thousands and thousands of cases now that have been filed around the country, challenging various actions. Those cases, if the district court judges rule against Trump, will go up to the courts of appeals. At that point, Trump will want to go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
You know, and I know, that the Supreme Court is simply not equipped to deal with volume. It is not. It cannot deal with this case and that case, and it will pick and choose. What I think they would pick and choose is the birthright citizenship issue, the notion that people born in the United States to people who were not legally in the United States are not citizens. They'll take that up. Prediction is rough these days, but I believe that Trump will lose on that issue.
But wait a minute. What about the rest, though? They might not take these other things that involve.
They lack the capacity to do that.
Okay, so if a lower court says he can't do these things, like get rid of USAID, or he needs to go to Congress to do these things, you're saying that if judges at the appeals level, the federal level, or whatever it is, say Trump can't do that, then the Supreme Court, because of the volume of cases, may not take those cases.
I don't think they have the ability to do that.
But I can challenge both of you, and I do this with great hesitation, I should say. Why do either of you, particularly you, Judge Gertner, think that Donald Trump will not refuse to comply with either a lower court order or even a Supreme Court order?
That's what she just...
No, it isn't. She said, let's assume that...
I said that's the second part. I think that he will refuse to comply? Yeah, I think there's a chance of that. And
even with the Supreme Court?
Of course.
I think that there's a chance. I think there's a chance of that. There's certainly been comments like that from people in his administration. And were that to happen, that would be a constitutional crisis. That will be a constitutional crisis because the Supreme Court's power, comes from its legitimacy and the willingness of people to obey these rules. If he begins to crack that open, then we're in a very different country, in a very different world.
And by the way, I'm assuming, for example, let's assume a case around the separation of powers things, the USAID thing, the Education Department, which allegedly is his next target, that they rule you can't do that because that's the legislature's province, and he ignores it. As you say, a constitutional crisis ensues. And it seems to me the people who could step up to the plate, the Trump sycophants in the Republican Party, if they don't step up to the plate, he will get away with ignoring a Supreme Court ruling, will he not?
Well, let's sort of tease that out. The remedy for that is impeachment.
Well, my point exactly.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
We got to take a break. We have to take a break, and then we'll continue with this.
Take a break. Oh, my God. Okay, we're talking with retired federal judge.
By the way, you don't think that he'd disobey a Supreme Court order,
Yeah,
Markey?
I don't know, Jim. I don't know. I'm flummoxed like
Last night he said he's going to buy Gaza. So you don't think he'd ignore a Supreme Court order?
I don't know, Jim.
We don't. The answer is we don't know. There certainly are people in his camp who have suggested that they should, that they will do what they want to do. They've certainly been ignoring laws. I mean, the firing of the top echelon of the FBI, non-political appointees, people with civil service protections. Civil service protections means that you can't fire someone without cause, without giving them an opportunity to challenge it in an administrative proceeding. They're very robust protections for people in the civil service. And, he's gone ahead. Now, one theory is he's done that not because he's going to ignore civil service protections. He's going to go, whoops. And everyone who he has fired will go, I want to leave. In other words, what he's doing is performative to get people to leave.
I agree. We got to take a break. I'm sorry. My apologies. We'll come right back, Judge Gertner. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we're talking to retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. We're going to keep talking to her after this quick pledge break here at Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH from the Boston Public Library.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Okay, as I said before, we have these pledge breaks a few times a year because we depend on the generosity of the people who listen to this radio station to donate, because you can listen to this radio station for free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on your computer, wherever you get it, on your tablet, on your phone. And we are dependent upon you, and we hope, particularly at this time, you can be generous to us here at the station. We have a lot of nice messages from people who did take the time to donate. Mark in Dayville says, Dayville? Where's Dayville, do you think?
Don't ask me.
Says, it's the only station I ever listen to when driving. Robert from Rehoboth is a big fan, and so is Elizabeth from Canton. And Deborah...
No. Marjorie refuses to read something that mentions us.
Okay.
Robert from Rehoboth says he loves Jim and Marjorie on Boston Public Radio. Elizabeth in Canton says, love Jim and Marjorie, appreciate your consistent reporting of the news. And this is the one you like the most. Sarah from Maynard, I'm comforted by the fact that Marjorie and Jim are as distressed about the news as I am. I love the humor. Well, It's just the cover.
That's right. Well, if you're not laughing, you're crying. That's my motto. So the number here, if you want to donate, and we really hope you do, especially if you haven't donated before and you're a big listener, maybe time to kick in some money. You don't want to be, what did Mitt Romney used to call people that didn't have health insurance?
Oh, what was he?
Free riders.
Freeloaders?
No, we didn't say freeloaders.
Free
we said
riders?
free riders, because there are people that are taking advantage of other people paying higher premiums for their health insurance so they could go to the emergency room and pay nothing. Anyway, the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And the gift, if you give $10 a month or $120 all at once up until 7 o'clock, but Marjorie wants you to do it by 2.
I do.
Because she's thought for years we get credit if it happens during our show.
People notice, Jim. People
Is the camera
notice.
on me or it's not? Okay, well, there's
It's
this
not.
little, whatever.
We can't
So
see
there's
it,
this
Jim.
little white, which is really black now,
Yeah.
these earbuds that are not only fabulous, and also has a little LED screen so you can see
That's
how
right.
charged or uncharged
That's
they
right.
are.
Very chic.
What is my point? Oh, they are updated so that they are now waterproof. So if you happen to be listening as you're walking in the rain, you're in good shape. So that's the deal. 70% of our money comes from people like you, listener support. If you can afford it, give whatever you can. If you want the earbuds, $10 a month, $120 all at once at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And if you can't afford that, give what you can. And by the way, if you can afford a lot, give a lot more.
That's right.
And basically so that when people who can't give a lot now can't in the future, they'll do the same thing. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Ed Markey joins us tomorrow. The governor's with us for an hour at the library on Friday. Michelle Wu with us for an hour at the library on Tuesday. And we're continuing a thoroughly terrorizing conversation with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, senior lecturer at Harvard Law School.
You know, Judge Gertner, one of the things that got me even more unnerved than I already was this mention that these agencies, if the Supreme Court, well, it wasn't really clear if the Supreme Court went this far, but it was talking about the Federal Reserve coming under presidential control, meaning that he could raise or lower interest rates at a whim. And I didn't really understand how that could happen, but that's what both pieces I read in the Washington Post and one in the New York Times said.
Well, I mean, could happen is one question. Should happen is another. These have been set up as autonomous agencies. Their head has a term that is supposed to outlast any given president, a 10-year term or whatever the term is. Federal Reserve is like that. And they were set up to be relatively independent of the president in power on the theory that we need these kinds of organizations, these kinds of commissions, rather, to be able to make decisions out of the give and take of the political scene. And Christopher Wray was supposed to be that with respect to the FBI. He had a term that was beyond that lasted longer than Biden's term.
10 years, I think, right?
Yeah, in order to make sure that these people would be independent. There are some political appointees. Trump can make those political appointees, but these were supposed to be relatively independent. I remember when Trump was first elected, I was actually in Australia, and people were asking me what it would mean, and I would say he will do what presidents do in the lane that he has. National security issues usually are a president's lane, but issues that have to do with the everyday governance of the government are usually governed by an independent and neutral civil service. That's what he's trying to dismantle.
Yeah. So,
independent and neutral civil service.
Judge Gertner, I can't remember, are we allowed to mention what the subject matter of the book you're working on, or are we not supposed to know?
No, of course.
Well, tell us what it is, because it's relevant to what I want to ask you. What are you working on?
I'm writing a book called Incomplete Sentences. It's about the men that I sentenced when I was a judge, sort of what I knew about them, how oftentimes I was obliged to impose a sentence, which I thought was completely wrong. And it chronicles my meetings with these men, including one who is across the street from you. People who I had sentenced. I want to find out where they are, and I want to be accountable for what I did. Not will I be reversed by the Court of Appeals, but I want to know how what I did and others did figured in their lives.
Because of mandatory sentencing, you mean, where you had no choice?
Sometimes mandatory sentencing, sometimes mandatory guidelines, sometimes these I couldn't get away from.
Okay.
Let me make this clear. I followed the law, but I understood that I believed that the law was unfair. So I always walked around with two feelings at the same time. This is what I have to do, and I think this is unfair. Now is the time to talk about the unfairness. That's what I've been doing.
By the way, not only am I thrilled about the subject matter, I don't think anyone's done this before. The title, Incomplete Sentences, is brilliant. Whoever can. But the reason I asked you that was because one of the things Marjorie and I were talking about in terms of outrages, Marco Rubio's first trip as Secretary of State is the Central America. He went to Panama, worked out something vis-a-vis China with the Panamanian president. He then goes to El Salvador, that most people think ranks in the top 5 of the most violent, unconstitutionally torturous prisons in the world, and has cut a deal with El Salvador that we could send our worst criminal offenders to jail in El Salvador. Would you have had the power when you were a federal judge and you sentenced one of the people you're writing about to decide he is so horrible, I'm going to send him to these deadly prisons in another country?
No. Let me just say, so there's an issue of authority, whether you have the authority to do that. This is essentially deporting American citizens. These are American citizens. You may not like what they've done. They maybe deserve punishment, but they're American citizens. But there's another key issue which I think has not been addressed. They come back.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
They come back. And so having thrown them essentially to the wolves in El Salvador prisons, they will be entitled to come back to the United States. People also talk, the word is criminogenic, going to prison is oftentimes makes people worse criminals. I'm not sure that happens all the time, but it will happen here. And especially going into prisons that are widely believed to be gang infested. So they will come back. And we will have created a situation far, far worse than the situation we have now.
Judge Gertner,
that is fine.
You mentioned in the beginning of our conversation that you were filed litigation or lawsuit or whatever you file there on behalf of these FBI agents. I've read up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, a third of the entire agency that may have had some minor involvement with the January 6th investigation. What does this mean for I guess you could hang in and wait to get fired or just be fired. But then these people aren't making a whole lot of money. They're losing their jobs, their health benefits, their pensions. This is a really horrible thing hanging over their heads.
This is outrageous. I mean, again, it has to go back to the January 6th. The January 6th violations, demonstrations, whatever, the January 6th attack on the Capitol had certainly a link, as the January 6th committee and as the indictment said, to Trump.
Right.
But at base, it was violent assaults on police. Take away the politicization of it. Take away why they were doing it. At best, it is violent assaults on the police. And the notion that there was something wrong with FBI agents investigating violent assaults on the police and trespass and threats to congressional members, even if you take out the political gloss, the notion that there's anything remotely wrong with that is outrageous. And that's what he's talking about. President Trump certainly challenges his connection to January 6th. But he can't challenge that this was ordinary crime. The rest of it was ordinary crime. And certainly the FBI agents were investigating ordinary crime.
Yeah, his lawyer there, Bove, whatever his name is, I think he called it an outrageous injustice that they were investigated at all. I mean, He's a member of the bar.
Right? And is now leading the justice. Well, bonding was confirmed.
One of the people,
until bonding was confirmed.
A big deal at the Justice Department. Yeah. So that doesn't bode well. One last thing for me: how long do you think this is going to take? I mean, all these illegal things are going on. You have filed suit. Other people have filed suits. The unions have filed suits, but these could be months, if not longer, winding their way through this court system.
What we have seen with, for example, the cases against Trump, is that well-meaning judges gave Trump substantial due process rights, and so the cases against him, the criminal cases against him, were taking longer than criminal cases against anyone else.
Was that a mistake? Was that a mistake in hindsight?
Well, I mean, it's hard. Certainly, they should have been begun longer. I mean, I think the last time I was on, I said that there was no excuse for Garland not bringing these cases
earlier.
January 2021.
Yep.
And then give due process. There's no question about it. I mean, he's entitled to all the due process that the Constitution offers. But when you begin those a year later, you're dealing with a very different situation. So there are about 30 cases that have been brought against Trump. Most of the cases, because he's not just promulgating a policy to be implemented next month or the month after. He's implementing the policy now. Most of those cases are asking for temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions. And judges are ruling, like the judge in Washington State that ruled on the birthright citizenship issue. So he's going to get rulings right away because they're presenting emergencies.
Okay.
It's not the same situation as the Trump criminal cases. There was no emergency injunction there, and those cases had to wait until a trial and an appeal. These are emergency cases with respect to immigration, with respect to the civil service, defunding the government. These are TRO situations. And so there will be rulings right away. That then puts an incumbent on the government to try to go up the ladder to undo these injunctions. So the shoe is on the other foot.
You know, you're going to be really busy the next 10 years of the Trump administration, Nancy Gertner, let me tell you. Judge Gertner, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it. Judge Gertner.
Yeah, and thank you for the State Democracy Defenders Fund, too. That is it's a wonderful thing. I guess people can fund it. Can they fund it, Judge Gertner? Yep. Can people send in money? What's the website?
It's statedefenders.com, I think.
Statedefenders.com.
We'll check it out to confirm.
Okay.
Judge Gertner, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much. I'm getting a bunch of texters who are saying there's some kind of anti-Project 2025 march going on up at the State House right now. Maybe somebody can check into that and see what's going on up there at the State House. Anyway, we've been talking with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. She's a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School, a Boston Public Radio contributor, and she's heading up the State Democracy Defenders Fund. After a quick break, what does Donald Trump really mean by manifest destiny in space? Well, we're going to talk with Sky Telescope senior editor Kelly Beatty about space, about Mars, about an asteroid that's coming a little bit too close to home. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support. So please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
That's the deal. So it's pledge. Is this winter pledge break for a couple of days? It's your opportunity to support financially that which you listen to, or you wouldn't be hearing me. 70%, actually a little more than 70% of our budget comes from listener support. That would be you. We're urging you to give whatever you can in whatever amount you can. And if you can afford $10 a month or $120 all at once, and you're really into these wireless earbuds with an 89.7 GBH logo, they're black. I don't know what that matters, but they are black. And they are waterproof, which apparently is a big deal. If you're interested in those, 888-897-9424, online at gbhnews.org. But as Marjorie and I regularly say, if you want to give something and can't afford it, give whatever you can. $5 once, whatever you can do. It is much appreciated.
Well, here's something I regularly say, but since you tell stories a million times, why shouldn't I? That when I was young and kind of penniless, I used to listen to this station an awful lot, National Public Radio. I love National Public Radio. And I kind of felt like it was a mainstay in my life, and I felt like a little bit of a cheapskate because I was never donating to the cause when I get these pleas from the people that were then doing what we're doing now. So I did, and it made me feel a lot better about myself. I was contributing to something that meant a lot to me. So it's amazing how contributing that money can make you feel better about yourself, really, that you're being generous to something that means something in your life. So the number again, if you'd like to join our listeners in their generosity, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Mark Regan, live at the library, streaming online, youtube.com/GBH News. Ed Markey zooms in tomorrow. Governor is here for an hour of Ask the Governor at the library on Friday, 1 to 2. The mayor, 11 to 12 on Tuesday. By the way, Judge Gertner had the website wrong. It's statedemocracydefenders.org if you want to check it out. We're joined now by Kelly Beatty, senior editor of Sky and Telescope. Kelly, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Great to be back.
Pleasure
thank you very much for joining us. So I want to play a little sound for you. President Trump, during his inauguration speech a couple of weeks ago, claiming the U.S. will be a growing nation again, so much so that we'll soon plant a flag on Mars, thanks, of course, to his first buddy, Elon Musk's rockets. Here he is.
The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Which, of course, is a big dream of Elon Musk as well, his big buddy, as we just said. So what do you think? How long before we're on Mars?
Well, if you believe what Musk has said, it's a matter of only 4 years, but that's not going to happen. He's using this brute of a rocket ship called the Starship, which is being launched from Texas, right against the Mexican border. It's had 8 launches so far. They have not all gone well, but is the most powerful rocket ever built. So this is the vehicle that Musk plans to build upon to get people to, he's probably going to skip the moon if he could do it and go straight to Mars. That's long been his intent. Now, in the meantime, NASA has its own Mars program called Artemis, And it is moving along more slowly, more expensively. And we've had one mission. The next one is not until next year sometime. Like all NASA space missions, they take a long time. Musk is a hurry-up offense.
So obviously Trump rhetorically was celebrating at least, well, not just going to Mars, but the whole deal. How's NASA likely to fare under the Musk-Trump presidency?
That's a super good question.
What do you think?
Musk will soldier on by himself. He's the richest man in the world. He has this vision, and he's pursuing it. And NASA, one of the really good questions is, will NASA be allowed to continue building its rocket, right, called the SLS, which is comparable to what Musk is doing? The bets are that it will probably be canceled after years of development.
Saying, why does the federal government have to spend money if Elon Musk is doing it in the private sector?
Right, the rocket, not the capsule. Okay, so we'll see where this goes. But I mean, Musk's rocket is reusable. NASA's rocket is not.
Well, I'm talking about NASA more broadly. I'm not talking about just this individual effort. Is it Jared Isaacson? Is that the guy's name?
Right.
This is this rich guy who I believe paid for 2 SpaceX.
He did.
Musk flights, that kind of thing.
And was the first civilian to do a spacewalk.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. So obviously he's into it, which would suggest to me, this may be naive, is a good sign. Somebody who really cares about space.
Absolutely.
So beyond the Mars issue, what's your sense? I know it's an open question as to whether or not NASA will escape the worst of Musk-Trump budget cutting.
And it has already begun. Back in the Biden administration, as a deal with Congress, Biden agreed to cut discretionary spending, and NASA took a $500 million hit. I'm sorry. $500 million hit, and most of that fell on plans to return samples from Mars. So in broad terms, what NASA does is they launch humans into space, and they send spacecraft to other planets. That's for most people. And so the question is, how is that going to be partitioned under the new administration?
Well, aren't they? My last thing about this administration, because I know it's all speculative, I never heard of the National Space Council before. I had no idea it existed, nor that the vice president was the chair of it, whatever. Apparently that's being axed. What does it do, and should we care about it being axed?
So the National Space Council was actually created when NASA was back in 1958, with the vice president as the chair. You may recall that Kennedy's vice president was Lyndon Johnson, and that explains everything of why the Manned Spacecraft Center is in Texas instead of Florida. Okay, it's absolutely true. So various presidents along the way have embraced or not this National Space Council. Biden did not, Obama did not, but Trump did. During his first term, he reconstituted Mike Pence was something of a space fan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so the vice president serves as the chair of this. And so it was under that we saw the posturing that ultimately created in the Space Force being created, for example.
What does that do? I know Trump created that. I have no idea what the Space Force does.
They help set policy. So they advise the White House, in a sense, of what policy. Now Trump's got Musk, and one could argue he's got Musk. Why does he need the Space Council for? But Musk has a very specific agenda, right? He is all for commercialization of space. He's in some inspection right now with the FAA because his rockets have tended to blow up and they leave debris over places like Turks and Caicos out in the Caribbean. And the FAA wants to make sure that he's operating safely.
He's mad at them for finding him, isn't he?
Exactly, right? This is a man who is not used to having people monitor him. So if the Space Council is reconstituted, then it will certainly be with Musk's blessing.
Yeah.
Talking to Kelly Beatty from Sky Telescope.
One of the things that, obviously the president does not like any diversity. He wants everybody to be white males, I guess, which is really too bad because you've seen the astronauts being, across the board. We've had, years ago in Challenger, we had the school teacher from New Hampshire. We've seen women, we have a woman up in space at the space station now. We talked to Sunita Williams and obviously diverse astronauts. So that's kind of a slam.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The last set of astronauts selected, which was 3 years ago, there were 12,000 applicants and 12 were picked.
Wow.
So your chances were 1 in 1,000. And guess what? Those 12 that were picked, white men were in the minority. There were 5 women, for example. Now another crop of astronauts.
Of course, women are in the majority, so why not?
Why not? And you know, the point is, getting back to the air traffic controller thing, when you're 1 in 1,000 people getting picked to be an astronaut, you are qualified. It doesn't matter what your race or gender. And so it'll be interesting because another class of astronauts is about to be chosen, 8,000 applicants that'll be chosen in June. And so it remains to be seen. There's already DEI that may be difficult to unravel. For example, this next crew from Artemis, the NASA crew to go around the moon next year, includes a black man and a woman. And so is Trump going to undo that? It remains to be seen.
You know, we have to take a break, but let me just tease this. One of the great pleasures Margie and I have had in our whatever number of years as GBH is when Sonny Williams called in, zoomed in from outer space a few months ago. When we get back from this pledge break, we're going to play what she had to say with us and ask you about the state of affairs on the space station with she and her colleague.
Okay, we are talking with Kelly Beatty, and he is from
Sky and Telescope.
Yeah, I lost my page there for a second. Senior editor, Sky and Telescope. We're going to keep talking to him right when we get back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, close your ears, Marjorie.
Okay.
Joseph from Little Compton says, Jim Browdy, that's me, and Marjorie Egan are the best. Your guests are great. Your commentary is excellent. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Joseph.
Janet from Brookline. I love the news, interviews, and arts coverage, but Marjorie and Jim are the best.
That's very nice,
too.
too.
It's out of our system.
I very much appreciate that. I very much appreciate everybody who takes the time to donate. And it's great that people take the time to write a little note along with their commentary, especially if they say nice things about me and Jim there. That makes me feel very good. My ego is
You know what we
boosted.
haven't gotten one of today?
What?
I love Marjorie, period. You usually get a ton of those.
We haven't got
Not
those.
yet.
But we do have anonymous texters that were waiting for the next smug mug, Jim, because they want to see a picture of you looking smug in the mug.
That's
so
what I do.
We do have a lot of those in the text feed over our telephone number here. But anyway, we do really appreciate people that take the time to give, and we are mostly more than 70% listener supported. So we depend on the generosity of the people that are listening right now and the people that have listened for many years. It's very easy, very quick to donate. You just call the number. Operators are standing by.
They are.
888-897-9424, or you can give online, gbhnews.org. We have a little present today, as we always do. If you want to get a little something for your efforts today, it is these wireless earbuds. They come in this little charging case. They're black. Usually they're white. This time they're black, and they have the GBH logo on there, and they are waterproof, and you can use them with anything, your phone, your tablet, whatever. Any Bluetooth-enabled device works with these little earbuds. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're continuing our conversation with Kelly Beatty, senior editor of Sky and Telescope.
So Jim mentioned before the break that we had astronaut Sunita Williams calling us from the space station. It's such a big thrill.
That's incredible.
It was in October. She zoomed in from the International Space Station, and she was, as people may know, she was supposed to be there for 8 days. She wound up being there. She's still up there now. She's been there for more than 8 months now, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And by the way, she's got a school named after her in Needham. She's a local. She spent a lot of time in Needham. So anyway, here she is when she spoke with us in October.
I think the one thing I really get from being up here is we take life a little too seriously on Earth. We get aggravated with some of the littlest, stupidest things that really we shouldn't, because this is our one big planet. This is our one big place that we live. You know, we don't really know if anybody else lives anywhere else, so we really should all just get along.
You know, by the way, Marjorie, if you didn't hear the promo for this hour when we taped it this morning, said something like, and Sonny Williams will hopefully be back in a month or so, whether she wants to come back or not.
Well, because the president, didn't the president say he wants her to come back? She was talking about having more work to do up there now.
Oh, well, you know, these career astronauts, they want nothing more than to be in space. The old guy on board right now, Don Pettit, is a career astronaut. He's the oldest astronaut is a good friend of mine. And I said, Don, why do you keep doing it? He says, why wouldn't I?
How old is he?
He's in his late 60s.
Didn't you apply to be a civilian astronaut, you told us?
I did.
Did you make any cuts?
I've made it to the top 100.
Did you really?
Wow, good for you.
This is way back in the day.
That's
really
impressive. So you have the right stuff, Kelly Beatty.
Yeah, ask my wife. I don't know.
But I'm pumped. Thank you. So a couple of interesting things about this Williams thing. What's Butch's last name? Will, whatever his name is. Can you look it up for us? The two astronauts are supposed to come back in 8 days. Trump said the other day, I'm asking Elon Musk to get him back earlier, which I really don't quite understand because the SpaceX ship, if that's the right word from what I understand, is already attached to the International Space Station.
It was already locked and loaded late last year. And the problem is that...
Butch Wilmore, my apologies to him. Yeah.
You could just take that one and bring them back, but that would leave poor Don Pettit there to run his half of the space station all by himself. So they wait until the next crew comes up. And these spaceships aren't exactly you go down to Walmart and buy them. So, there had to be a queue, which is why it's taken so long.
Can I ask another question about her? She did an interview the other day, I'm not quite sure where it was, where this is Williams, who said, there's certain things that I do on Earth that I can't do at the moment. And she didn't mean I can't do them because I'm in a weightless environment. She meant because I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not practicing them. Like, she said she can't walk. And there are other things. Is that normal? Because I know there's this period where you sort of transition back to semi-normal life when you come back to Earth. I've never heard something like that. That is normal?
I mean, well, you have a treadmill that you're strapped into, that that's how you get your exercise. But like taking a walk along a parkway or something, smelling fresh flowers, all of those things that are sensory and help our general well-being, you just can't do.
So it's not aberrational to have this deficit when you've been in space
And
for a while.
one of the other things that doesn't get talked about often is that when they come back, their eyeballs are perturbed into strange shapes from being in weightless. It takes them a while to get their eyesight back, or maybe not, and they need corrective lenses.
Really?
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Why would that have to do with weight?
Well, because your eyes are subject to gravity.
Gravity like everything else.
Right, and so also there's fluid gain and things like that.
Yeah. So I read this story that scared me about this asteroid, but apparently I shouldn't be so worried. What's going on with this asteroid that's coming close to Earth?
It's not much bigger than this lobby.
Oh, that's fine. That's not a problem.
And if it hit on the State House on any given day, I'd want to be, like in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
It depends. We don't really know how big it is. We only know how bright it is, and you have to make some guesses. The thing is, right now it has a calculated chance of hitting in 2032, which isn't all that long from now, December 22nd, by the way, of about 1% chance. And we will be able to determine if it's 100% or 0% in time. The analogy I like to use is this. You're driving down a country road in your car. You're doing exactly 50 miles an hour. You can't change your speed. You look up ahead, there's a train crossing, and you see a train coming. And the train is also coming at 50 miles an hour exactly. So now the question is, who's going to get to there first? Are you going to collide? And you have to take time to watch the train to see if it's going to get there first, or you're going to get there first, or you're going to get at the same time. And this is what astronomers are doing with this asteroid. They're trying to find new positions to refine the orbit to determine what is real.
But if we find out, what did you say, 2032? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. If we find out in 2031 that it is headed towards Earth,
State House.
Why don't we just? Don't say that. Why don't we just?
Kelly said it first. We'll blame him.
Why do we? Yeah, but you mean something different. Why do we not just launch something to crack into it to change its course?
You could do that if it were really certain. And also, it's not that big. And we know where it would hit. We know
where would it hit?
It would hit somewhere along the equatorial region, most likely over water, over the Atlantic.
Oh.
And so this is part of the issue. It isn't like it has the State House in its crosshairs, or whatever. But
are you amazed that 8 years out, if it hits, we have a good idea of where it would hit? I mean, that's unbelievable to me.
Right.
How do we know that?
Well, and you're going to get orbital mechanics here. It's not that we don't know where it is in space. We don't know where it is along its path, how fast it's going. And so we know where it could hit Earth, and it's a matter of does it hit early or late, and there's a strip that has been calculated.
We only have a minute left. What's this deal with the planets lining up? Potentially as many as 7 in February?
That, Jim, is complete nonsense.
It is?
There is no lineup. What is happening right now is that right now in the sky, tonight, any night, it wasn't January 25th. I don't know where that came from. I really don't. I tried. If you go out tonight, on a clear night, look to the west, you will see Venus. Underneath Venus is Saturn. That's 2. Look straight overhead, there's Jupiter. That's 3. Look to the east, there's Mars. That's 4. They're all bright, they're pretty, they're great to look at. The moon's up there too. Hidden among them, you can't see them with your eye, are Uranus and Neptune, so that's 6. Later this month, Mercury will join the parade, and then you'll get to see them all. But this is not rare. It happened 2 years ago.
Well, it is rare because I go to bed by 7 o'clock most nights. So it is rare in that for some of us. Kelly Beatty, you are terrific, and we love having you here.
My pleasure as always.
Great to see you as always. Thanks so much for your time.
The asteroid is upset, Jim, because they want to audit the legislature, and that's why. That's why it could be landing at the State House. Only kidding, fine. Of course. Okay, Kelly Beatty, after I goofed up this before, I'm going to get it right this time. Kelly Beatty, senior editor at Sky and Telescope. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. SkyandTelescope.org for more info.
SkyandTelescope.org for more info. Okay, coming up after the 1 o'clock news, the Lawyers for Civil Rights are fighting Trump's effort to end birthright citizenship on behalf of expectant mothers and immigrants who fear the change would make their babies stateless people. We'll talk with Sophia Hall of the Lawyers for Civil Rights next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News.
And you are listening to Boston Public Radio on 89.7 GBH. It is 12:55. I'm Sonia Lee. I'm here with Melissa Jones. It is the first day of our on-air fundraising campaign, and it's important that we get as many folks to pitch in and give what they can. Right now, in these last few minutes, this hour, 15 contributions. 15 contributions is what's needed to keep things on track today. GBHnews.org, 888-897-9424.
I tell you what, support GBH right now at $10 a month. Today only, we'll thank you with our new wireless earbuds. These earbuds are so comfortable. They sound great. They pair easily with all your Bluetooth devices. And I love this about them. They are water resistant. Sign up as a sustaining member at $10 a month or give $120 all at once and ask for these new earbuds. Remember, this is a special offer for this first day of the membership drive only, and the deadline is 7 p.m. Please support your listening right now by giving at gbhnews.org or calling 888-897-9424.
And I want to send a big thank you out to Susan in Andover. Thankful that we still have a free press in this country, and love listening. Jim and Marjorie, also a fan in Medford, making a contribution, says listening to Jim and Marjorie and the Culture Show is always an engaging experience and especially valued during these chaotic times. Attending live recordings at the BPL is always fun too. Well, thank you. And we hope you'll join in with these folks right now at gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
More friends to thank, including Robin and Webster, who says, Marjorie and Jim, what a talented team. Love the interplay of conversation. I count on them for daily sanity. Thank you. And Jessica in Somerville says, I love BPR with Jim and Marjorie, and I love NPR's mission. Keep up the great work. Jessica and Robin, thank you. We keep up the great work because of the support of people like you. How about you? How about you? Pick up the phone, call 888-897-9424, go online to gbhnews.org, join in with Robin and Jessica and thousands of your friends and neighbors who are making GBH News possible right now with their support. gbhnews.org.
3 minutes left. Now 13. Now actually 12 contributions in these next 3 minutes. We are looking for a rally here from Boston Public Radio fans. This show is unique. You will not find another one like it anywhere on public radio, even commercial radio for that matter. But we are public radio, and we are so lucky to have this kind of program. And so we're asking for your support right now. We are right where we need to be for the first day of the membership drive. So we're asking you to lend your hands to the effort. 12 contributions in the next 3 minutes. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And why give right now? Well, Sonia just gave you a whole bunch of great reasons, but frankly, you're listening right now. So why not take this moment? Don't put it off. You're going to forget. If it's me, I'm going to forget. Well, what was that thing I was going to do? You're going to support the news that you rely on here on 89.7. So let's take care of business right now. Go online to gbhnews.org or give at 888-897-9424.
And be sure to ask for the brand new wireless earbuds available just today. And if you want to get them and support your Boston Public Radio listening, this is the time to do it. $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120. Maybe you can give a little bit more. New earbuds are terrific and sound great listening to GBH and Boston Public Radio. GBHnews.org, 888-897-9424.
If you have weekly, if not daily visits with Jim and Marjorie, then this membership drive is all about you. You count on Boston Public Radio to keep you ahead of the news while providing a good dose of humor at the same time. There's nothing else like it on the air, and it stays with you all through the day thanks to your support. GBHnews.org or 888-897-9424, and thank you so much for
and
your
also,
support.
I help to meet the goal. Just a minute left here. We have now 4. This is terrific. Getting some good momentum. 4 people giving in the next minute or so. Keep it on track. GBHnews.org.
I'm Jim.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston Symphony Orchestra, presenting Schubert's 6th Symphony and Brahms' 1st Symphony, February 13th, 14th, and 15th at Symphony Hall, conducted by Herbert Blumstedt. More information at bso.org. And Supermicro and NVIDIA, accelerating AI with a wide range of AI servers and the NVIDIA AI Enterprise software platform. Supermicro is committed to driving AI infrastructure breakthroughs with rack-scale innovations.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org.
Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Several federal employee unions are suing the Trump administration over its deferred resignation offer, calling it misleading. NPR's Andrea reports they're asking a court to halt the directive before tomorrow's deadline to accept the deal.
The Trump administration has given nearly all federal workers an offer to resign from their jobs now and keep their pay and benefits through September 30th. But since the deal was first announced last week, questions have arisen over its legality, in part because federal agencies are only funded through mid-March. Federal employee unions have urged their members to reject the deal, calling it a trick to get people to resign. Now, several unions are asking a federal judge to temporarily block the effort and to require the government to, quote, articulate a policy that is lawful, rather than an arbitrary, unlawful, short-fused ultimatum, which workers may not be able to enforce. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
Critics are sounding the alarm about the extent of Elon Musk's involvement in his oversight of the cost-cutting entity known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. But as heard on CNN, House Speaker Mike Johnson is defending it.
That's what they're doing by putting a pause on some of these agencies and by evaluating them, by doing these internal audits. That is a long overdue, much welcome development.
Much different sentiment among protesters in the nation's capital today. They are rallying against a directive that puts most USAID employees, roughly 10,000 of them worldwide, on administrative leave as of Friday. Pam Bondi has been sworn in as U.S. Attorney General. She's taking over the Justice Department as FBI employees sue over the DOJ's effort to ID employees involved in investigations related to President Trump, such as the January 6, 2021 attack at the U.S. Capitol. A judge has thrown out a felony case against a former Georgia prosecutor accused of interfering with the police investigation into the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. NPR's Debbie Elliott reports he was the black jogger chased and killed by 3 white men in 2020, but no arrests were made until months later after video of the crime came out.
The ruling ends the misconduct trial of former Brunswick District Attorney Jackie Johnson, who was charged with violating her oath of office. Senior Judge John Turner agreed with the defense that the indictment should be dismissed on a technical flaw. Johnson testified this week that she never sought to shield Ahmaud Arbery's killers from arrest. One of them had previously worked as an investigator in her office. Prosecutors with the Georgia State Attorney General's office had already suffered a setback on Monday when Judge Turner dismissed a second obstruction charge, saying there was not one scintilla of evidence that Johnson interfered with police. Debbie Elliott, NPR News.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is up 150 points at 44,705. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A movement protesting the early second administration of President Donald Trump has picked up a lot of momentum online. The movement is organized under the hashtags Build the Resistance and 50501, which stands for 50 protests, 50 states, 1 day. Locally, protests are taking place at the state houses in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and other New England states. A large crowd had already gathered outside the Massachusetts State House before 11:30 this morning. The movement posting messages online that tell followers to reject fascism and defend our democracy. In New Hampshire, Concord City Democrats are telling anyone attending the rallies there to be cautious as the protest is a grassroots effort. And in Maine, a protest was canceled at Maine State House out of an abundance of caution because it had been infiltrated by what officials call bad actors looking to spread hate, misinformation, and turmoil. Of course, Trump has signed a series of executive orders in the first couple of weeks of his new term on everything from trade and immigration to climate change, not to mention the aim he has taken on Greenland, Gaza, Panama, Canada, China, Mexico, and others. Acting on behalf of a group that wants to create a Medicare-like single-payer health care system for all Massachusetts residents, 3 Beacon Hill lawmakers have refiled legislation to create the necessary funding. USA Today reporting the measure would, among other things, replace private health insurance companies in the state. The group Mass Care suggests 4 new taxes to finance this new system. 25 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates, all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to remind listeners we're going to be joined tomorrow by Senator Ed Markey. He's going to be zooming in to talk about all the unrest in Washington, D.C. On Friday, we're going to be joined here at the Boston Public Library from 1 to 2 by Governor Maura Healey. And Tuesday, back here at the library, we're going to be joined by Mayor Michelle Wu from 11 to 12. Both of them will be taking our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Quick civics lesson. Here's just a couple of lines from Section 1 of the Constitution's 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So it might have come as a surprise to anyone with a law degree or the ability to read that President Trump issued an executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship. That order was immediately followed by legal challenges claiming unconstitutionality, including one filed on behalf of undocumented expectant mothers who worry their kids will be stateless if Trump gets his way. While the case makes its way through the court system, we're joined now on Zoom by Sophia Hall. She's Deputy Litigation Director for the locally based Lawyers for Civil Rights, who have filed the lawsuit in partnership with other local organizations on behalf of expectant mothers. Sophia, it's great to see you as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Jim. Marjorie, lovely to see you. Wish we were talking about something else.
Yeah.
So do we.
We've been wishing we were talking about something else for many days now. But in any case, what is the state, Sophia, of these legal challenges about birthright citizenship? Where are we?
Certainly. So to be very clear, Lawyers for Civil Rights, within hours of the signing of the executive order on the day of the inauguration, filed a federal lawsuit to challenge the implementation of this executive order, claiming to strip people of their citizenship, anti-birthright citizenship executive order. As you are likely aware, we are one of several lawsuits that have been filed across the country. One of the earliest ones here. We now also have 18 attorney generals who have joined on to our lawsuit here in the federal court in Massachusetts. However, we've gotten 2 really good decisions, one as early as within hours ago from Maryland, and then a prior one from Seattle, that have now extended a preliminary injunction, which is a legal way of saying they've stopped the implementation of this legal action across the country, across the United States. So right now, these cases will be able to proceed to argue the legality of the executive order, but in the meantime, the government will not be able to implement the executive order.
So if you have a baby tomorrow, that means that newborn is a citizen of the United States.
That means that what has always been the case in this country since the creation of the 14th Amendment is still true, which is, yes, that baby will be a citizen and have citizenship that's recognized under our Constitution.
Sophia Hall, it's comforting to know that at least temporarily this thing has stayed, hopefully permanently at some point too. But let's go back to the executive order so we understand the breadth of it. I'm not totally clear who Donald Trump intended to cover. What is the status of a parent of a kid born in the United States that would be subject to his attempt to get rid of this birthright citizenship?
Well, Jim, I actually think you're spot on. You're not alone in your confusion because the executive order was written so vaguely that it did not specify what specific type of statuses it would cover. And so what in fact it did was not only make people who are concerned because they have U.S. born children, but perhaps the mother or father or the parentage of either one of the people is foreign born, but it also would make people question and be uncertain for all types of immigration status, people holding TPS, people holding asylum. Basically, in Massachusetts, where we have the mecca of healthcare and education, we're talking about a bunch of US-born children who may have doctors and educators as parents who might be foreign-born, who question whether or not they are subject to this executive order. And that uncertainty is part of what we argue makes this unconstitutional as well.
One last thing, maybe there is certainty, I hope, around this, maybe not. Would Donald Trump or his lawyers or the odious Stephen Miller argue that this is retroactive, meaning that any person who's no longer a baby who was born, let's say, of undocumented parents is stateless, is not a United States citizen?
Jim, I'll do you one better. I won't tell you what they'll argue, but I'll tell you what the answer is, which is no. That could not legally be upheld by any court. I mean, just the argument that a child that will be born in the United States is stateless is unconstitutional. So certainly the idea that someone who believed that they had citizenship held by our Constitution should also certainly be able to find that illegal as well.
You know, Sophia, let me say the obvious. You know about 3,000 times more about the law than I do, but I know a little bit about politics and I know a little bit about rogue, and as Marjorie would call them, corrupt justices. If I had said to you, let's say, I don't remember when the decision came down in the presidential immunity case, is there any chance in hell the Supreme Court, even this Supreme Court, is going to give a president, this president, virtual total immunity from criminal prosecution for anything he does while in office? I'm guessing you, like the majority of court watchers, would say, okay, maybe Alito and Thomas, but not a chance in hell. So, I mean, for example, there's language in this. I read it a minute ago. Let me read it one more time. There is, in the middle of this provision in the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States, in the next sentence is, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Why are you confident that 5 justices will not say, oh, subject to the jurisdiction thereof means blank, which means this doesn't apply to any child born in the United States? Why are you so confident of that with this court?
I mean, at Lawyers for Civil Rights and as a civil rights attorney myself, I have to be confident that our jurisprudence, that our legal system can rise above politics, that can rise above sort of the pendulum that swings as we have one administration exit and another enter. Yeah. I have to believe in that because that's fundamental to my profession and my ability to make change. That said, if we are to ever see the worst case scenario where we have a lawless court who's simply, doing the bidding of a current sitting president, then we as citizens, we as people who vote individuals into office have some work to do to really determine whether or not we need to change the way fundamentally our Supreme Court works.
I wondered about if anyone's thought this through, the Trump side that thinks that newborns born here should not become United States citizens. And I guess they become newborns without a country, and then infants without a country, then 5-year-olds without a country. I mean, what is it? When you follow this through, what exactly are they supposed to do? Live here with none of the protections and none of the guarantees of the Constitution, or are they supposed to go, I don't know. I mean, have you heard arguments the other side about what happens to such children?
No, because there cannot be valid arguments to say that we should have individuals in this country who are simply stateless and that we recognize that under our Constitution. I mean, not only does it not make sense, not only is it not legal, it's also just, practically speaking, it's not logical to implement. As many of you know, we're very lucky that we don't have some list or registration of all citizens in the United States, right? But the idea of implementing something like this to make people stateless, to appropriately identify who is or who is not captured by this executive order is not feasible, which is another reason why it's not logical to think that it could have been implemented and could have been successful.
We're talking to Sophia Hall for Lawyers for Civil Rights. Well, since you're as confident as you are, can we move on to some other things that you've worked on in your life that I hope will concern our listeners? You worked at AIDS Action in your former life, is that correct?
That's true. That's where I began my legal career.
The fabulous AIDS Action, I should have said, one of the most incredible organizations. There is this program, PEPFAR, that was as bipartisan as any program could be, I believe created under the George W. Bush administration. There was a global initiative to help control HIV AIDS. It appears, I don't know what the status is today, but it appears this too has been targeted by the Trump administration. What is the status? What is the prospect? And has it lost bipartisan support because all these Republicans are so scared of Trump?
Well, unfortunately, as a person who thinks quite heavily about the importance of HIV work, particularly focusing on HIV discrimination work, what I know is that, you know, the dwindling of support for people who are living with HIV in this country didn't start with this administration. For years, we have had a lack of funding and support for advocates in this space. And we've had real challenges to ensuring that we have equitable access to sort of health opportunities and prescriptions for people living with HIV. So this isn't new. You know, the politics around supporting people living with HIV is not new. Just as of last year, I was suing the U.S. military because they still maintain a ban from allowing people to enlist in the U.S. military who are living with HIV. So none of that is new. It's highly politicized and has been something that's needed support for a long time. What I can say is that I think PEPFAR, like many things, is getting swept up in the discourse about eliminating the idea of just USAID, period, and the funding for USAID, sort of diminishing the value of that work. And for anybody that works at all in that sector, you know that there is so much more need than there is current funding for anyway. The idea of eradicating the limited funding that we have would be disastrous for the communities that we serve, including the HIV community, which is now still made up of people who frequently are living low-income jobs, low-income communities. And so, you know, from that point of view, I would say that it's one of the many targets that we've seen, but this one isn't a new one. This is one that we've need advocacy and voice for some time to ensure that people recognize this is a community that should be supported and continue to have jurisprudence, politics, policies, funding around.
You know, one of the things that always strikes me about the AIDS and HIV business, though, is that AIDS can be passed on to, speaking of children, newborns. And, you know, there may be some anti-gay stuff going on or anti-whatever stuff it is. But generally speaking, I think we're pro-babies, at least.
We used to be.
Well, you know, the old Barney Frank line, if you're pro-life, you're concerned about, you know, life begins at conception and ends at birth. And sometimes I think the way we treat children bears that out. But talk about that. I mean, there is that transmission issue, which is really pretty horrifying.
Well, Marjorie, I won't go down the philosophical angle with you about how we think about babies, but I will tell you that, you know, candidly speaking, the medical advancements that have been made since the 80s in the HIV space are phenomenal. A person who is properly being treated for HIV has a nearly, less than 0.001% of actually contracting or transmitting HIV to another individual. We have had such significant medical advancements that really it should be the equivalent of many other diseases that we think of, like asthma or like heart conditions, you know? And so it's just simply not because of that stigma that you've hit on, the idea that it began as what people call sort of the gay disease, and now unfortunately still focuses on both vulnerable protected populations, women of color, people, LGBTQ. So that is something that is still a problem. However, when we think about transmission rates, we have great medical science to ensure that HIV is not transmitted, particularly here in Massachusetts, where there is phenomenal health care in the space around OBGYN with women who are conceiving and then pregnant. That is something that is virtually, not impossible, but a very low likelihood of happening.
But what I'm just going to say, I'm not really worried about here. I'm worried about USAID. If this continues and fewer people are able to get their medication, that's what I was concerned about.
Oh, yes. So absolutely. You're making the same point that we were discussing before, which is there are a number of countries throughout America, or throughout the world, who are going to be victimized, who are going to be vulnerable, who already are, who don't get enough support and resources to ensure that people have either medically safe births or have any sort of conditions in health that need to be addressed on a regular basis. If we strip that funding from people, we are going to have disastrous results. And I think the number of fatalities that will immediately follow the stripping of that funding will be a clear indicator of how much of a mistake that is.
Talking to Sophia Hall for Lawyers for Civil Rights. I was reading your bio on the organization's website this morning, and it says Sophia has a growing practice focused on dismantling barriers to diversity in public agencies. I assume that was written more than 17 days ago. The retreat we talk about almost every day, and we forgot this earlier. Yesterday, Marjorie and Trenny Casey from NBC Sports Boston made the huge mistake to praise the commissioner of the NFL for standing up for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Wait 24 hours, he finds out Donald Trump is coming to the Super Bowl. They have removed the slogan in the two end zones, which would say end racism, which have been there for 4 or 5 of the last Super Bowls, and now in its place is choose love. Yeah. So talk about cowardice. But the places where you've been working through the years, as you say, to dismantling barriers to diversity in public agencies, most of these agencies and entities are dismantling it on their own for fear of Donald Trump coming for them, are they not?
So, Jim, it's an excellent question. I have an expertise and a practice in representing primarily public safety agencies, public safety employees, so police officers, firefighters, EMTs, court officers, particularly in Massachusetts, where we do not see equity in terms of our racial demographics across the state. What I'll tell you is about the DEI rollback is this. Whenever I get an opportunity to speak to a group about what they should do, if they should be worried about the existence of a DEI policy, I remind them that Title VII exists and that equal protection exists, even if our EEO may have some drawbacks in the coming days and months, given this new administration. And what they should also be worried about is what happens if you eradicate these protections and these policies, and then you now see challenges to having access to your workforce or your workplace for people of color? Because that's going to open you up to liability the same way if you don't roll back that DEI in response to what this administration is threatening for you to do.
Well, one quick example, and maybe you just responded to it without knowing the question. When Bill Evans, the former police commissioner, used to be regularly on our show, he brought up the issue of lack of diversity in his own police force and how important he thought the cadet program was, which increased diversity. Marty Walsh, to his credit, when he was mayor on our show, talked a lot about it too. They both were open in their embrace of the notion the cadet program allows us to attempt to bring more diversity into a relatively undiverse law enforcement agency. Would that, we'll ask Mayor Wu that on Tuesday, I hadn't even thought about it till just now, would that not potentially be under attack too, under the new edicts of Donald Trump?
Well, you know what side of the V I lay on, so of course my answer to that is no. However, what I'll say is that I was fortunate enough to support the Boston Society of Vulcans as they helped push legislation at the State House to create the first cadet program for our Boston Fire Department, which actually is less diverse than our Boston Police Department. That's correct, yeah. And what I'll tell you, what I know about that legislation is that although an overarching goal was diversification of that particular place of employment, there's nothing in the legislation itself that mandates any sort of quota system or anything that we would have seen relative to historic litigation that resulted in consent decrees. So like one person of color to one white person for all hiring decisions. That's not how that legislation is written. And so as a result, I actually do not think it would be subject to a challenge about DEI.
Can I tell you something? When I grow up, I want to have your confidence. I have to say, Sophia, you are amazing. It was a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
We hope you'll join us again soon. It was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Sophia Hall. That was the voice of
great.
Sophia Hall, Deputy Litigation Director for the Lawyers for Civil Rights, who have filed suit challenging Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship. And as Jim said, she is very confident about the chances there, which is good to hear. Coming up after Pledge Break, we'll open the phone and text lines. Another angle, speaking of mothers, but this time, the Trump administration wants to tie federal funding to areas with high marriage and birth rates.
This is true, by the way. This is not made up.
So we want to know, what lengths would you go? Would you pop out a couple of babies, one more or two, if you wanted to get rid of the slow zones on the MBTA, or maybe have one more kid to get the Sagamore Bridge to the Cape finally funded? You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Marjorie, an anonymous texter asks an interesting question,
Yes.
which I think is a totally fair question.
Yep.
I've always been curious if the NPR talent, I assume that includes us, contributes to public radio. Do Jim and Marjorie contribute to GBH? And I have to say two things. One, no one asks us, they ask. No one tells us, directs us, anything. We both contribute, as we have, by the way, for long before we were lucky enough to be hosting this show. So the answer, just for the two of us, is yes.
I think I'm going to do my part, Jim, to hold on to the job here. So I'm ready to open the wallet on a monthly basis. I'm a sustaining member.
So am I.
I would like to point that out. I get the little magazine.
We give the
mail.
exact same amount because we do everything the same as best we can. We make the same, we give the same, etc. Now, Marjorie won't read these, so I will.
Okay.
Teresa in Pomfret Center. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. I love Jim and Marjorie. Keep up the good work. These are people who made a donation, kind enough to leave a note too. Patsy in Framingham. Thank you, Jim and Marjorie, for being there every day. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's keeping me sane. Catherine and Brewster. We really appreciate the donations. We really appreciate taking the time to say something nice. It means a lot to us and our colleagues. And so we're going to ask you again, make a contribution to the work that we and our wonderful colleagues do on this radio station. You do that, whatever amount moves you, at 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Now, I just want to point out that our show is over in 34 minutes.
Here
and if
she
you'd like
goes.
to donate during the time that we are on the air, that would be wonderful. Jim says it doesn't matter. I know it does. The little bird told me. So I think if you like us...
Because you think we get credit.
That's right. So I think if you like us, this is the time to pick up the phone and call 888-897-9424, or else you can give securely online at gbhnews.org. And most of our money, more than 30%, comes from the generosity. Small donations too. I mean, we get a lot of foundations and those big private organizations and big time philanthropists that have a lot of money. But most of our budget comes from people that are willing to give $10 a month, $15 a month, $5 a month, whatever. And that makes it easiest for us to know how much we have to spend every single year. So if you've been hesitating, now's the time. Our show is over in half an hour. You're running out of time. And by the way, the earbuds are only here till 7 o'clock. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And thank you very much for all those nice remarks. It means a lot.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Senator Markey zooms in tomorrow. Governor live with us at the library on Friday, 1 to 2. Mayor Wu with us 11 to 12 on Tuesday. And again, we are inviting Josh Kraft quite regularly, the mayor's challenger, and he is welcome here And we hope to see him a lot between now and the vote. Trump's anti-DEI, pro-natalist train is barreling through the transportation department.
Pro-natalist.
Well, I just learned that word this morning, by the way. I didn't even know it till this morning. But this is true. I didn't. When Marjorie brought this up this morning, I thought she was trying to be funny. Here it is. A memo released from the new Department of Transportation head, Sean Duffy, who, by the way, and this is relevant, is a father of 9.
Father of 9.
And a famed naked dancer. This is the Secretary of Transportation.
Looking good.
From MTV's Real World Boston, says states and cities with higher marriage and birth rates should get preference for federal transportation grants, and proposes ending support for projects that involve climate change or racial and gender equality, of course. So for the remainder of the show, we are going to we're going to talk about the absolutely absurd notion that I guess we're going to ask you, are you willing to have more kids to ensure that the tea arrives on time?
That's right.
I'm not
Could be
done yet.
hanging in the balance.
Are you ready to tie the knot, for example, with someone you weren't otherwise thinking of marrying because it might get us funding for the new Sagamore Bridge? The number's this is true, 877-301-8970. And by the way, here, if you missed, which I did, MTV's Real World Boston.
That's right.
Here is it's radio, sadly. It's
the Duffy dance.
It is. You have to imagine this. This is Transportation Secretary right now, Sean Duffy, on MTV's Real World Boston.
He's very holier than thou, wants everybody to push out those babies and get married.
He does, exactly.
Or get married and then push out the babies.
Okay, he's got a curtain draped around his, how shall I call this, crotch. Unfortunately, all we can do is the sound and let your imagination handle the rest. His voice is what you'll hear. Here it is. Oh, it's all we got of Sean. Now, his crotch is covered. I want to be totally clear. He was not Secretary of Transportation then. He is now. Can I ask you a question, if I may?
Yes.
Why should the number of births and the number of marriages
affect the potholes on your street?
Exactly how many potholes we get filled?
I think we have a great quote here from our governor, Maura Healey. This is what she told the Boston Herald. She said, "I've got to be honest. I've really tried hard here, but quote. I do not see a connection." And I think we can all relate to that. Apparently, Sean Duffy, who met his wife-to-be, the mother of the 9 children, on one of these MTV's Real World. Yeah, she was a star of Real World San Francisco.
She was?
Yes, she was a star of Real World.
How do you know this?
Because I've been reading all about it.
Okay, good.
I mean, I always love people that prance around naked on television and then telling everybody that they should get married and push out.
Well, his crotch was covered when he was doing it.
Well, that's because they couldn't show it they couldn't be in the paper.
No, his crotch was. I watched the video. He actually did cover his crotch.
And the entire thing?
Well, I don't know about that. But
exactly.
I do know
that's
for a little
my
while
point.
there.
But he's very serious about this, and that's what he said. And Governor Healey obviously was very upset about this transportation memo that tied funding to birth rates. Apparently, birth rates are going down. You know why birth rates are going down? Nobody can afford to have kids anymore because it's so expensive. And maybe if Sean did a little something about funding childcare, things would be different. But in any case, birth rates are going down, and he's decided, even though, as the governor points out, there seems to be no connection, that it's very important to have more children to increase the birth rates. And if you don't do that, slow zones on the T are going to continue. The bus lane is going to be shut down. Jim, we're not going to get a little...
Swim across the Cape Cod Canal. By the way, Caitlin and Clinton asked a good question on text.
Yeah.
Since Florida has a high aging population, do they get less funding? I assume the answer is yes, they do. Is that not correct?
I guess that would be correct. Now we have another bit of sound from Sean Duffy. This is this is about cleaning the house. You get into a little spat about cleaning the house. This is the 1997 Real World Boston, and he's talking with his roommate Genesis about house cleaning.
I don't see you trying to keep the house clean, though, Jan. Why are you saying right now? Why don't you say, hey, let's keep it clean?
Because you clean the house once, and you think you're...
You want to keep it clean. You want to keep it clean, right?
So now you think because you cleaned that everybody should keep it clean. Oh, Sean cleaned.
No,
oh my
I'm
God.
not the one who cleaned it.
Manila cleans all the time, and you trash it right afterwards.
I don't cook in the kitchen. You should have before. If you felt that way, why didn't you say it? Use your maul. You have a maul. Use it.
You're so blind. It's not even funny.
You are, Genesis.
No, you are.
Let me tell you, I, for one, am happy that he's the Secretary of Transportation. 877-301-8970.
He was a congressman for a few years, apparently. He was also in Fox News. His wife was on Fox News. The whole cabinet seems to be one, Fox News, a big job creating kind of thing. But you know what? They make tons of money on Fox News. So they're taking a big pay cut to go to these, millions of dollars. So they're taking a pay cut to go to these places.
So let me ask a question. Could you, if Meredith Goldstein were here, and a question was asked by a listener, I am dating this person I'm really not that crazy about. Yep. However, the tea is never on time. Should I consider marrying this guy if Phil Lang would ensure me, he's the GM of the tea,
Jim,
that the tea would be on time if we got, do you still say hitched? Do people still say?
Get hitched. I think you do what you have to do, Jim, for your country, or in this case, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where apparently we're going to get nothing unless we start having more babies.
Did you see this ridiculous question from Alyssa in Ithaca, New York? Does gay marriage count? Of course not with this administration. Alyssa, of course it does not count.
Okay.
Really?
So another texter says maybe it only counts if you are conceived on the MBTA.
Okay, so let's take some calls.
Laura in Cohasset.
Hi,
what do you
Laura.
think,
How
Laura?
you doing?
Hey there.
Hi.
Mr. Duffy makes me embarrassed to be Irish. Also of Irish descent.
Yeah.
9 siblings.
Yeah.
I have, and cousins of 12.
Wow.
Up to 12 kids. None of us have had more than 3. Most of them are not married because it's a really bad idea to have that many kids. And I'm well past birthing age, but I have kids of birthing age. And Mr. Duffy ought to pay more attention to climate change that he doesn't believe in, because my kids are not having kids because of the state of this planet. They don't have their heads in the ground. They see that we're headed for a dictatorship and that the world is so uncertain. I feel bad leaving my 30-somethings at this point.
Now,
Laura, I don't want to be harsh.
A Debbie Downer. Here we got to look on the bright side. That if we just have more children, everything will be fine.
No, I mean, Laura has got to accept the fact, and it's fine. Obviously, it's their right. She says her children are not having children, which means obviously they're going to have to walk to work. If that's okay. Laura, it was an excellent call. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I was
much.
only teasing with you, Laura. I hope you don't mind.
301-897. We got to take a break.
If you will have 1 or 2 more kids, or maybe 3 kids, you get like an Uber for life. Uber X, you know what I mean?
Does this guy, when he wrote this, is this like with a straight face that if you have more children in your state and you marry more,
I don't know, Jim,
you get more transportation funding?
I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I generally think that people who spend their times dancing naked on Real World Boston
with a crotch cover
or San Francisco or any of those shows, I mean, you must have seen those shows on TV. My kids watch them all the time.
Of course, yes.
I don't know if they're the right people to be running the country and giving us advice on whether we should have children or not. That's just me. I could be wrong. Anyway, we're going to keep talking about this. We'll be right back. Sean Duffy says, you don't produce more babies there in Massachusetts, the tea's going to stink forever. 877-301-897. Are you ready to rise up and do the right thing? We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Here's that number and website again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. We have about 20-some more minutes in our show today, and I really, for one, would really appreciate it if you're thinking about giving. This is the time to give, because I like to get credit for what people give during our show, and Jim says it doesn't matter, but I really know that it does. In any case, if you're interested in those earbuds, the black earbuds are really nice. They're waterproof. They have the GBH logo on it, an LED screen with a battery display inside. They work on any of your devices, any of your Bluetooth-enabled devices. That's only available till 7 o'clock, but our show is only on until 2 2 o'clock. And you can get those earbuds for $10 a month. That makes you a sustaining member. That means we can put you in the budget, figure out how much money we're going to get. But you can also just give $120 and get the earbuds all at once. The number again is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And I want to just read some of these nice notes that people sent, because they are very nice. Here's a guy from Houston, Jim. Ken from Houston says, I discovered Marjorie and Jim during the summer, and now I listen every day from Houston.
Thank you, Ken.
And Sharon from Gloucester says, I love you, Jim. She says, I love you, Jim. Keep up the good work.
That's a
and
first.
Elizabeth from Cambridge says she really appreciates the work of the guests that come on the show. We do really have great guests. We're going to have the governor on Friday, the mayor next Tuesday. We're going to have Ed Markey tomorrow. We're really lucky to
Plus,
get...
we're here.
That's right. We're not guests.
We're not a guest.
We have great guests, and local politicians come on the show quite regularly. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
So here's an anonymous text that you can answer. Can I get extra earbuds for my 7 children? The answer is no. You will get extra transportation funding, but you got to pay for the earbuds. $10 a month, $120 all at once. If you want 7, that's $70 a month, and $840 all at once. Very good math, Jim. Only available till 7. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Oh, are we done?
Allie, a New Hampshire listener, says, how many times is Jim going to say crotch on today's episode?
Yeah.
The answer is many more
He
times,
said it a
Allie.
lot.
The number's 87. Oh, no, that's a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We are discussing, and this is real, a lot of you are texting saying you're making it up. No, we are not.
We're not. It's
Sean
real.
Duffy, who has 9 kids,
Yep.
which is fine. Now, obviously, he likes good roads and bridges. He has 9 kids. He's the Secretary of Transportation.
That's right.
Has made it clear, we'll ask the governor about this on Friday at 1 o'clock, that if you have more kids and have more marriages, you move up the marriage and the birth rate, you will get more transportation funding. And if you care about roads, bridges, bike lanes, whatever, we want to know how far you are willing to go for that transportation
Now,
funding.
apparently there's a big pro-natalist movement all across the country. Jamie was kind enough to get a story for us out of Audubon, Pennsylvania, featuring the Collins family, and they're aiming to have 10 kids. They're not quite there yet. They're having the kids by in vitro fertilization, and C-sections. That's strenuous on mom. But in any case, they've named their kids things like Titan Invictus, Industry Americus, Torsten Savage, and Octavian George. I think those were unusual names.
Can I tell you something?
For children.
My mother originally named me Titan Invictus, and the reaction was not good, and so she changed it to Jimmy.
But
instead.
I guess single-handedly down in Pennsylvania, they're going to make sure they get potholes fixed where their house is because they've got 9 kids there. Ronnie in Danvers says, I'm gay. What am I supposed to do? I'm not having kids, but it isn't for lack of trying. Another texter says, what's Trump's next target to be punished? The unmarried and childless, women without boob jobs and Botox, or very high-heel shoes. Amazing why these Trump women can wear these really high shoes. Nancy Pelosi did too in her 80s. I don't know how the heck they did it. Anyway, the question is...
she also fell and had her hip replaced.
She did.
So maybe
she did. We have a lot of problems here transportation-wise. Everybody knows the T is struggling. It's getting a little better under Phil Lang. We all love Phil Lang. That's great, but we all have a lot of potholes. We have a terrible mess on the Mass Pike all the time. Lots of people may notice if you're driving at night in the rain, you can't see the lines on the highways anywhere around Massachusetts.
Horrible.
All of these problems we face, and apparently the only way we're going to get them fixed is if we're willing to have more children, because Sean Duffy, ex-Naked Star of Real World, says that's the way to go.
Maria in a car, you're welcome to Boston Public Radio. Thanks for calling. Hi.
Well, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
And I'm thinking that it's probably Project 2025 that is putting all this forward.
Probably.
As they stated. And these people, these beautiful people from TV, are just a talking head.
That's possible. You know where Project 2025, then obviously you know where the name comes from. It's either have 20 or 25 children, and you'll get transportation funding. That's the genesis.
Oh, by the way, they are having rallies today, Maria, up at the State House, too.
They are?
Protest of, USA Today has a story about it, that people are protesting all around the country. I don't know how big
what
the protests
are. What are they protesting?
They're protesting Project 2025. It's called the 5501 movement. Henry mentioned at the top of the news, 50 states, 50 protests, one day. I don't know how big they are, but they're going on right now.
Maria, thanks for the call.
Listen to this one. She may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. She's the woman who won't conceive.
That's Charlie on the MTA.
That's a
for
good
those
one.
That was good.
That's a takeoff on Charlie
You've
on the MTA.
sung twice on the show in a week.
I know.
I love that,
I've been
actually.
taking lessons to try to
Email
keep up.
and Marlborough says, I am not fully committed to the goal of more children for the tea, but I am willing to just go through the motions. It's very
Thank you, Emil.
very generous of you. Let's go to Tom in York, Maine. Welcome to the show, Tom. Hi.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon.
Hi.
I think you guys are missing.
Whoops.
Missing what?
What are we missing?
I think we lost Tom.
No, you didn't miss.
Okay, say it again.
Okay, go ahead.
We didn't hear it.
You're not seeing the forest from the trees here.
Okay.
Pete Buttigieg is going to be a hard act to follow, for one thing. But then I think the plan is that the more children we put out into the world, the more taxpayers we'll have in 18 years. So hold on and just sit tight.
Okay.
Okay, so
That's it?
hold on and sit tight.
Oh, sit tight, wait the 18 years. Tom, thank you for the call. Jesse in Uxbridge says, I'm running to get my vasectomy reversed as we speak. There is someone who cares about
Jesse in Uxbridge
transportation.
knows there's a lot of potholes in Uxbridge and the line's not painted. And
That's
he's had
gonna
enough.
change.
He's going to do his part for his town, his state, and his country. Paul and Hingham, thank you for calling.
Then we got to take a break.
Okay.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. I was just going to comment that I think that I hate the Nazi comparisons to the Trump administration.
Yeah.
But these sort of things were promulgated by the Nazi regime. They've also been done by left-wing regimes like Ceausescu in the 1980s, also outlawed abortion and encouraged birthright. And it's part of this right-wing conspiracy, the replacement theory. I think so. It's just so creepy.
It's very creepy, and I'm glad you're reminding us of the creepiness, Paul, because a lot of people saw The Handmaid's
Paul.
Tale. They read the book, Margaret Atwood's a great book, The Handmaid's Tale, and there was a big television series. So we have a little clip from Commander Waterford in Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, reading to women citizens from Gilead, that's how you say it, their Bible, about bearing children, Jim.
And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I die.
And if you want to see something really creepy, watch The Handmaid's Tale. It is creepy. Anyway,
That's
we're going to talk
pretty
about
creepy, too.
that. We're going to talk about this for a little while longer. The number is 877-301-8970. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Quick break. We'll be right back.
It's time to
Repeat what I always say. If we didn't have these occasional pledge drives when we ask people to contribute, we would be doing commercials. That would be commercial radio. Jim and I used to work in commercial radio.
We did.
And we would have 3 at least commercials, 8 an hour, which would last like 5, 6, or 7 minutes. You could eat your entire dinner, a 3-course meal during the commercials. And, you know, as anybody who spends their time recording things and flying through commercials, you know how annoying commercials are. Well, we don't do that here because we broadcast for free, but that means that we have to ask our listeners, because we're not supported by, big cereal companies and big whatever companies. We're supported mostly by contributions from you guys. So that's why we ask a few times a year for you to help keep this operation going. So here's the number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And let me say, in all fairness, we say, give what you can give. And if you have a lot of money, then give, $5,000 if you can. If you can afford and want the wireless earbuds that are updated, because now they're wireproof, with the GBH logo on it, then give $10 a month or $120 all at once. If you're struggling right now, give what you can. And Marjorie said this before, which I hadn't even thought about. If you can't afford to give anything, would you agree with this, Marjorie? Have a dozen kids or get married.
That's
or
right.
whatever it is.
That's right.
877, whoops, wrong numbers. Forget that. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And again, 70%, a little more than 70% of our budget comes from listener support. So we are totally dependent upon the generosity, not of strangers, but from people who we consider to be part of our family. And if you feel the same way, please contribute what you can. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Oh, we have some people that are big fans of, I'm supposed to keep going, aren't I? Sorry,
We are,
I was
yes.
reading
It's
the
okay.
text. Yeah, this is the last pledge break for us during our show when Jim and I are still here. So if you want to give and you've been hesitating, this is the time to do it. We're over in about 13 minutes. we've got these lovely messages from you guys. Elizabeth from Cambridge, appreciate the work of guests that come on the show that I mentioned before. We love Marjorie and Jim, GBH is the only station we listen to. So that makes us feel really good, and we're very happy to hear that. And those are people that have already contributed. If you haven't yet and you're inclined and you listen to us a lot, we would ask that you can contribute what you can. Again, the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie again live. We have very little time, and our topic is Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation's message to states, cities, towns across the country. Have more kids, get married, you get more transportation money, and obviously if you do neither of those things, you get less. Francis in a car, welcome to the show. Hi, Francis. Hi, Francis. Yeah.
And shout out to everyone there for a great show every day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've missed the data in not focusing on the marriage. So consider the possibility of surrogate marriages so we can increase the marriage rate, get the back on track, and everybody will be happy.
Well, I like your thinking. I mean, that's thinking there. Thank you, Francis, for the call. John in Somerset has a wonderful point. Let's persuade Nick Cannon to move to Massachusetts. Doesn't he have like 20 kids? I think he does. With like 10 different women? I think he does.
Well, Elon Musk has got 11 kids, I think.
Yeah, do you want him here?
Many different women.
I didn't think so.
No, I'd like him to contribute to GBH, though. I think that would be great if he participated in the
I'm sure he's a huge
fundraising,
fan.
the pledge drive going on. Again, we're talking about this really weird memo from the Department of Transportation.
You know the show's almost over, right?
Oh, we have to go?
Yeah.
Should I keep talking?
No.
I guess I can't.
No,
Okay.
I would like you to keep talking.
Well, we get a really weird memo from the Department of Transportation saying that if we're going to get the chief fix, canal bridges, all the transportation problems we have around here, we're not going to get it unless we pick up the birth rate and the marriage rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I'm just saying, think about it, do the right thing for your city, your state, and your country.
It's a good question. Anonymous texter, how many kids do you need to get free transportation and tickets to the library for Boston Public Radio? We will answer that tomorrow.
Okay, so we are done. Thank you for reminding me, Jim. Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. And thanks to everybody who's down at the Boston Public Library. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, as I said, we're going to be talking to Senator Ed Markey from Washington. Chuck Todd, no longer at NBC News. We're going to talk to him. He's still a great political analyst. Former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral, and Boston Globe travel writer Christopher Muther, who's so fun to talk to. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Tamsin Vidal. Our engineer is John McClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jenny Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, and our host at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show is on right after us with Jared Bowen. That's going to start right after the pledge break that you're going to hear when we're gone here on 89.7 GBH. Jim, like I said, think about it. Do the right thing.
Whatever that is. I think I've done both, but that's okay.
Oh, okay.
You can always do more.
You can always do more.
Is
That's
that it?
right. Yes, I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim. But if we're nothing, we're smooth. We really, our transitions are smooth. Our clock reading is smooth.
No,
we are
I'm very
really
smooth.
professionals.
I'm very
the two
organized.
of us.
I pronounce things really well. All those kinds of things.
In any case, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
And it's the GBH Winter Membership Drive. We're taking just a few minutes right now to ask for your contribution. That's how public radio works. Most of the money that we spend to run the station comes from listener contributions. We're asking for yours right now at gbhnews.org or by calling us at 888-897-9424. Good afternoon to you. I'm Mark Cohen. She's Melissa Jones.
I'd like to share with you that the goal right now is to receive 15 contributions in the next about 9 minutes. We're looking for the financial support of everyone who relies on GBH to help keep this valuable resource for news and information on the air and available to all. Every dollar makes a difference. Your contribution right now makes the difference. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
We're hoping you can join us today with a sustaining gift of $10 a month. If you are able to do that, we'll say thank you with our brand new GBH 89.7 wireless earbuds. These are new. We're just rolling them out on this first day of our winter membership drive, and they are wonderful. They sound great, of course. They pair easily with any Bluetooth-enabled device, and they've got a nice little grommet at the tip that helps us keep it secure in your ear, which is important to me. And we'd love to say thank you for your gift with these earbuds, but you got to make that call. $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120. 888-897-9424. Online, gbhnews.org.
Mark just mentioned that sustaining program with those earbuds for $10 a month. Sustainers make an ongoing monthly contribution in the amount that they choose. We're suggesting $10 a month right now for those awesome earbuds. I'm a sustainer. I love it because it's easy on my wallet, and I find that I actually give more over time because I can be more generous over time with those smaller monthly amounts. Choose to take it out of your bank account, your credit card, and then you make a one-time setup and you're good to go. You know that you're always supporting, when you're listening, GBH News. Become a sustainer right now at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
We're in the final few minutes of Boston Public Radio, and right now we're looking for 11 contributions to help us round out this hour. Thank you if you've already made your show of support. If you haven't yet, the giving just takes a couple of minutes of your time. Support Jim and Marjorie, all the effort of their team, and everyone here at GBH. We are fueled by listener support, and that's what we're asking for right now. 11 contributions, just about 6 minutes left to go. 888-897-9424 online at gbhnews.org.
We'd like to dispel the notion that giving to GBH costs a lot of money, or that the amount you give just wouldn't be big enough to make a difference. Right now, your gift in any amount has a huge impact on our ability to provide you with the news and the information that is so important to you, especially in these really interesting times. Please participate by making your contribution right now. You do that at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Want to send a couple of thanks out to Elizabeth out in Carlisle, supporting GBH because we need to hear truth and facts now more than ever. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And Donna out in Southeastern, thank you as well for your support. If we haven't heard from you yet, again, the giving just takes a couple of minutes over your time. We'd love to hear from you. Leave us a message when you do at 888-897-9424 or leave your comment online at gbhnews.org.
I really want to encourage you to think about giving $10 a month right now and get yourself a pair of our new wireless earbuds. They're available today only. They go away at 7 o'clock, so don't miss this opportunity. They're really comfortable. They sound really great, and I love the fact that they are water resistant. So I'm thinking maybe hot tub with the earpods. I might actually try that one out with these. Sign up as a sustaining member right now at $10 a month, or give $120 all at once, and we will thank you with a pair of these earbuds. Remember, the deadline is 7 o'clock today, gbhnews.org, or call 888-897-9424.
Shout out to William in Salem. Thank you, William, for your support, writing to us, saying thank you so much for providing real news. Love listening to Marjorie and Jim on 89.7 when I'm in the car. William, thank you so much. Also, Diane in Uxbridge, thank you as well. You're helping us lower our goal now down to 7 contributions in these final 4 minutes. 7 contributions. We can get there. We're asking for your help to make that possible. So please give what you can and take those couple of minutes right now at 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
If you've never given to GBH before, now is it couldn't be a better time than right now. And how about thinking about making a contribution as a sustaining member? That's that ongoing monthly contribution. It comes directly from your checking account or your credit card. You can start at $5 a month, $10 a month,